I'd like to welcome you guys back to another episode of Modern Slaves and Mind Games. This is your host, the Dropout Professor, the intellectual sex symbol, the shamanic healer, the cosmic nomad rebel souls, the king of the eternal melanin oasis, the whatever cool, sexy, amazing name you want to put after that, because I am him. We are back for another episode. I hope you guys are ready for this shit. We're going to save all of my Popeye Sailor curse words for the podcast because apparently YouTube is blocking my videos down for using too much of that inflammatory language. And I apologize to everybody who is either beneath the age of 18 or isn't allowed to use those words, who has to hear me say those as a means of communicating and expressing myself. But I hope you understand that it's only for the sake of making sure that I'm expressing myself as authentically as possible, and allowing you guys to interpret that for whatever it may mean to you on your pace and your time. But as an autistic person myself, somebody who struggled with being misinterpreted for so much of my life, I had almost created this identity where I overly explain myself so much, even more so than is necessary, as a means of making sure I don't go understood. But still, if people aren't willing to understand you, or people aren't willing to receive you saying what you're going to say, expressing yourself how you're going to express yourself, then there's just no means of attempting to change yourself to conform for their validation. Allow them to meet you at a place where you can be the fullness of who you are, and you don't have to sacrifice that for them to even acknowledge that which you are. And if they can't do that, then ask yourself if that's somebody who genuinely cares about who you are beyond how your identity can serve them. And until then, you can keep listening to these episodes, continue to be indoctrinated into my nasty cult psychosis of consciousness and higher intelligence and intellectualism. And hopefully that allows you to pass the time. But this is just me freestyling here as I'm trying to get this video started, so the audio may not even work as I'm doing this, but if it does, I'm going to include it in the take. And if it doesn't, then so be it. Fuck it. We'll just get started here anyway. Now, before we get into this episode, we're going to start with a quick little promo. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our Patreon community. You can donate there, subscribe. You can get a couple extra perks that everyday people, the everyday heathens, don't get access to. But you will. And hopefully that's something that you can appreciate. And there's a couple of different tiers you can have access to. I'd check that out if I were you. Check us out. Next thing you can do is check out Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls. If you'd like to get some merch to represent the brand that we are, our crazy people, go ahead and get you some. Now, I made a video speaking about Drake, the culture colonizer, on my YouTube 8 months ago. Pretty sure that's when I last checked. About 8-9 months ago. Mind you, I've made that video private now because I was going to re-upload it and remaster the sound so you guys can hear it better. But then I realized, you know what? All the things that I said in there are just so much more developed if I just redid the perspective of the video, but not in an exact remake sense, but as it applies to what we know today. Because again, one of the reasons why I used to think that I was psychotic or in some kind of psychosis was because I would see things, or the patterns I'd be able to connect would be so clear to me that I would just seem like a psychopath to anybody around me. And then I'd be right months, if not years later. And then we're all just kind of looking around at each other oh, that's interesting. But then still, nobody wants to give me the validation of being right. So it's we're just constantly sitting here. Actually, no, that's a conversation that we'll have on the YouTube, because that has a lot more to do with autism and black and white thinking than that has to do with this Drake situation. But I do want some kind of kudos or some kind of respect for being right again. But I don't want you guys to think that that's some kind of identity crutch I'm going to use to be arrogant or cocky in front of you guys. One thing also I'm realizing, side note, I apologize, but one thing I'm realizing is I don't want my intellect to be the thing that I lean on as a means of validating my identity or like my worthiness in this life. I want to use my intellect to apply itself to this world to change the world that we live in, to hopefully make it a better place. Whether that's creating ideas, building projects, it's developing old ideas, it's accessing new memories, new future ideas and visions. Like, I believe that we've created a society, and we'll have this conversation too, like as a part 2 to the destruction of the Department of Education. But the university system in America was meant to say, hey, if you poors want access to higher education or to like not be a slave for the rest of your life, like multi-generationally, then you're going to have to go into a ridiculous amount of debt, which will basically make you an indentured servant to whatever industry you are signing your soul off into. But even worse than that is people are still poor beyond graduating college because they're the ones gambling on themselves, and it's not the university gambling on the students, which they should be, because if they were, then they'd make probably better investments in each of their students rather than students gambling on their whole entire lives and then more times than not failing on what they gambled on and then now living with the debt, the regret, or the suffering that comes on the back end of being wrong. And the university gets to just get new kids and new recruits every single year while doing so many more people wrong than good as a means of their system, because it's now just a profit-based funnel. Because do you see how many conversations we can have, bro? Do you see how many conversations? Like, I'm glad that I gave up the freaking fear, like the imposter syndrome or all that bullshit, because like we are gonna have so many amazing conversations on this page, and I hope you guys are really, really ready for that shit. But what I'm trying to say with that whole like mention of the university system is it made a bunch of people think that they are smarter than people who don't have degrees, when it could purely just be a matter of happenstance that they had access to get the degree, or just the fact that they had funding to have access to that, or the ability to, like, I don't know, have like a stable housing and support system foundation while they were going through school so they can focus on the rigors of school rather than focusing on the rigors of life, like poverty and homelessness and trying to feed oneself and trying to take care of a family while still jumping on top of the traditional school system, which has this perception that every single generation kids get lazier and lazier and lazier, when the incubator school model never wants to accept the fact that if they look up off the campus for one fucking second, maybe they'd see that the world is actively getting worse, exponentially getting worse for younger people, and we are being given no support, and not just no support, but being blamed for complaining that the world is the way it is, when everybody is going to be complaining in not even 5 to 10 years. But then again, just like I was saying about being right, nobody is going to say, hey, Gen Z, we should have listened to you, instead of walking ourselves blindfolded into modern slavery. Because now we can't say that we were stolen from another place and then we were enslaved by another people. We elected these people, these masters, into our government, and now we are choosing to let them enslave us. And there is not going to be any kind of free will on the other side of this, because we used our free will to choose to remove it. And I hope you guys all remember that. And I hope you guys remember the reason why I always want to say I'm not leading with my intellect, I'm leading with my soul, and I'm leading with my heart, and I'm letting my intellect help me communicate that to you in a means that you can comprehend it. Because how many intellectual people with degrees are on that side of the Democratic Party that let Kamala Harris lose? How do you lose an election when you spend $1 billion on it? Mind you, the oligarchy side of the government, and I'm not picking sides here, I'm saying the oligarchy side of the government that is in office right now, I'm pretty sure they didn't even spend half of $1 billion on their campaign. And this is somebody who's on trial for money laundering, for all types of financial crimes, and has a history of financial issues. So really sit here and ask yourself, like, what is that degree other than like another means? When I'm speaking about the poors here, what is that degree other than another means of separating the poors, thinking that some poors are better than others because they're more worthy of access into higher society than the others, when it's probably just like an oppressive, like exploitative happenstance that they got access? And then you take away all the quote unquote best poors from their communities, from the communities that they should actually be serving because they lived there and they have actual experience there and an actual emotional resonance there. Take them out of those communities so they can now be a number in a bucket to fight with other crabs for the validation of the master who owns the bucket, mind you. And everybody's livelihood or ability to feed themselves and their families is on the line. So everyone's afraid of actually holding the master accountable because, again, the master's livelihood is not on the line. Theirs is. But then when we live in a time like we live in today and we say we convince average Americans that DEI is the reason they can't get a job, and it's not because they're stupid as fuck, or it's not because they're ignorant as fuck, or it's not because there's, I don't know, rich people gouging the system ever since COVID, then, you say, okay, like let's remove DEI. Let's remove all of those equitable systems. Let's remove all of the stuff that actually matters, helping everyday people not be actually slaves, like whips and chain slaves. Because we hate the fact that these marginalized people who we used to just piss on every single day have access to be more than slaves. And that makes us feel bad. That makes us feel more bad than walking our whole entire country into a fascist techno dystopia. But the problem is the people who voted for the techno-fascist dystopia don't even know what the term techno-fascist dystopia means. To finish the point that I'm trying to say, you take the most talented, the most intellectual, the most skillful poors out of their communities, thinking that having access to the higher society is going to make them better than the people who live around them, not knowing that the people are living around them. The cause of that is the higher society that they're trying to get access to. Because wealth inequality is what creates projects. Wealth inequality is what creates lacking social welfare systems. Wealth inequality is what creates the poors, not poor people choosing to be poor. Because if that was the case, then you would see rich people shelling out money every day, everywhere they can to force the poors to see, hey, look at all this opportunity that you're not taking. But then to connect to the point about the DEI, we're going to remove all the protections and all the access, all the ladders that other people had to access corporate America. But we've already cut you off from the community that you came from to access corporate America. And not only did we cut you off from that community and from being able to serve that community or appreciate that community, but we also made you think that you were better than everybody who's in your community. So when you go back to try to find a job there that's not at this same corporate or like executive level, you're going to think that you're better than the other person who can do the same job that you can do now. And you going back into your community with this high and mighty uppity ass mindset is actually going to be the reason as to why people cannot build community now. All because you think that your degree from this school makes you better than so-and-so who never got a degree but has been working in the trades for 20 years. And I'm telling you right now, that person who's in the trades probably has a more diverse skill set than you do with your degree and a whole lot less debt than you have. But you can write an essay in prose. But you can say all the 50 states. You could write 3 sentences in Pig Latin. You're still poor. And that's what I'm trying to get you to think, bro. Like, do you want to be validated that you're smart? Or do you want to be validated that you can complete tasks? Or do you want to be accepted by a society? Or do you want to not be poor? Because if you wanted to not be poor, you should have addressed that first before trying to fulfill addressing the first 3. Because I'm telling you right now, the first 3 have nothing to do with your own self-acceptance or validation. It has everything to do with the world completing you. That was not supposed to be that long, but it happened to be, and I apologize for that. We understand, there's a lot of us in our community, we understand that we're gifted, but in a world where people are so self-rejecting and so apart from being able to just like appreciate themselves and not like gloat over themselves, we make sure that we stay humble. We make sure we keep that excitement in just a little bit to continue to show people that We're not doing this so we can be praised. We're not expressing ourselves or developing ourselves, or discovering ourselves to be praised. We're doing this for the sake of being applicable to the world around us, so we can actually not just serve it, but create a world worth living in for more people than just ourselves, and show them that they can participate in doing the same thing as long as they're willing to take responsibility for the shit that sits inside their soul. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys are ready to get in this episode. This shit's going to be so wild. Okay. You know what's crazy? Actually, I might have mentioned the fact that I had the intention of making a Drake video months ago, but it applies better right now. So hopefully, if you already heard that part in the video, you realize that I'm cutting and chopping this video up as we go. So bear with me, please. And if you love me, because apparently you do, since you subscribe to my channels, you buy my merch, you like my videos, you think I'm cute, I'm playing. But hopefully you can bear with me with that. It's about time to get in the video. And I want to start with a theory, actually. I don't think these videos would be what they are, and I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't give you guys an absolutely wild theory and then try to back ends connect it to the truth that I'm attempting to share as well. So why don't we start with a bang? How am I going to get crazy with you guys today? What if, allegedly, mind you, if anybody of any authority is listening to this stuff, because, I'm just a crazy guy who lives a very modest life, and I don't want any OVO lawsuits. What if the music industry was created by the mob? And not necessarily that it was like they have these architects thinking, oh, well, we need to have this musician and an A&R and an engineer and a this and that and a this and that. It was just what they wanted to invest in. It was their hobby, because you're making money selling the human beings, selling the drugs, selling the, doing the regular street activity. But there's a human desire for enjoyment. And that is one of the things that connects all of us in our humanity. That's something I'd like for us to really start understanding as the world gets so much more divided every second of the day. But their investment was not only sports, because they love gambling, but it was also in music. And also, there's a lot of money in music if you're smart about it. And think about this. What better way to launder a lot of money rather than a business that people who aren't involved in the drug business or the mob business can fully participate in and market and promote and share and validate and make credible without actually being in the drug business. And then you can just clean all that dirty money through this legal business and these legal careers, these legal business entities. And hopefully you just make it long enough to the other side. You drag in enough lost souls who want to die before you do to create a actual pathway or investment portfolio of money that you've made, legal money that you've made, to wipe yourself clean of your old identity. If it isn't something that is still plaguing you in your heart, or it isn't something that your career or the industry is forcing you to continue to promote as a means of making the industry more money, even if that means putting your life and your well-being at risk. But my main theory, one of my big theories about the music industry is, at first it was supposed to be, and mind you, it wasn't supposed to be a good-hearted thing. It was literally just like born out of hell. And I've made this theory on my YouTube channel before, but I think it's pretty plausible to put it in right here. The music industry is one of a handful of, I don't know all of them, but a handful of funnels, like I was just describing, used for not just everyday people to involve themselves in mob or gang activity, but for elites, like elite people in our society that have PR teams that back them up and make them look like they're gods. Elites need to somehow bypass the court of public opinion that they will definitely be judged and prosecuted by if we knew what kind of nefarious things they were doing behind those closed doors at things like Diddy parties and Clive Davis parties. But those rich people need access to these high-end drugs, to trafficked human beings, especially women and children, to a bunch of things that you will never have access to in a fair, equitable, safe society for the average human being. The only way they're going to get access to that is if somebody is crashed out enough or willing to crash out enough on the other side of the law to access it for them, to do the actual illegal business side for them, so they can just put money on the ground and then magically close their eyes, open them again, and that money turns into the thing that they paid for, no matter how illegal or nefarious it is. The music industry is one of the best tools to do that with. And I beg you to go watch the YouTube video that I made about that. I think it's called The Death of the Entertainment Industry. But we, the poors, and I hate even calling us that, but it's because of capitalism that I call us that, because we have to really start distinguishing the rich-poor barrier so these conversations make sense, because we're literally not living in the same reality. We're just living on the same geography. We're in the same geography. But we, the poors, if we're able to accept or receive the art that is being pushed out to us, that is, again, paid, whether it's by the mob or it's by the industry itself, if we're willing to promote it, to market it, to make it credible, to make it valid, then they don't have to go door to door knocking to sell not only the thing, like the actual things they're trying to sell, like the products or services, quote unquote, services. We're the ones doing it for them, because they can say certain things on hot beats. They can rhyme well. We're the ones promoting this type of activity. We us law-abiding citizens are promoting illegal activities for people who, if they were to promote their own illegal activities, like independently, would end up just like eradicating their whole entire hoods on Ricos. And I'm not saying this or even making this video to say like, hey, stop listening to rap music, stop listening to hip hop, because as a black man myself and as a black artist myself, I understand the importance in self-expression and freedom of that self-expression, especially when it comes from the perspective that rap is rooted in journalism. Just because it sounds good and because it can make you dance, it does not mean that it is any less credible than mainstream news. But it is real, on the ground, in person, in field networking and mass media communications. That's what we need to look at this as. When the capitalist looks to corrupt our culture through this mode of communication, me, a Gemini, hilarious how that connects to communication, needs to let you know this was a vehicle for us to communicate our cultural consciousness with each other. We didn't even care if the world wanted it or not. Once we found out how big of a bag it can make money-wise, we started caring. I'll tell you that. And I'm not saying that's to blame, but this was to communicate our culture to each other. Think about slaves on the American plantations singing songs to each other to help them escape from these plantations, putting braids in each other's hairs that had the tracks or routes to go to escape the plantation to freedom. Our culture is so complex and so deeply amazing that to think that the only thing that is being promoted is selling drugs, selling women, or killing other black and brown people by the hands of black and brown people, or being a fake suburban gangster, because that's cool thanks to social media. You can almost feel our ancestors screaming out of pain and agony for how bastardized this amazing divine tool of community building and development we have just like lost, or has become, forgive me. And hopefully through these conversations, and especially through this implosion of this corporate funded rap industry, those of us creatives, those of us who actually care to contribute to the culture beyond our own pocketbook, beyond our own winnings and validation by capitalism, start taking the reins of this system, bro, of this failing system, and turn it into an ecosystem that can actually cultivate more than just money. Can actually inspire the people to be more than they are, actually share ideas, actually develop concepts, actually cultivate and create a culture instead of just constantly exploiting the next one, exploit the next one. And then once you've eaten everything and you're the last one starving, now you're the one that's complaining. Nigga, you ate everything. Nobody else had anything to eat and you ate all them. And now you're sitting here complaining that you're starving, bro. Well, imagine if you... It's... The reason why I include all of this is because I believe the major labels are in on this mob stuff. So that's one of the most important things to include before we get into like the real junk of this video, especially like Drake attempting to sue these guys. It's like it's just what I believe. Or one thing that just makes so much sense to me about this whole industry is the fact that there was going to be a whole handful of mobsters that were going to go down in this music stuff. Like, something tells me, I don't know if it was a major event that just kind of blew over everyone's head, or it was a potential of a major event and incrimination that was going to happen. But these mobsters said, hey, you know what? Why don't we just use this to funnel money into your pocketbooks, whether it's the private prisons, whether it's this slave labor, whether it's this other drug dealers and other criminal organizations. But why don't we use this as a means of funneling more criminals to get paid off of? Because being a prisoner in America is legalized slavery. And then also utilizing these people to make this field so popular and credible that they would never be able to think that we are using it to exploit our own like nasty like fetishes and kinks and desires that like would nowhere near be validated in society. And we, again, because this is not just the mob doing this, the CIA has its own role, allegedly. And I think the CIA got in on this and said, you know what? You do all the sting traps, you do all the setting up, you do all the investing in the quote unquote talent. And we will sit here and catch all of our new customers. And it's been working very, very well. And even worse than that is the music industry doesn't only promote us basically walking ourselves into prison, but it also continues to drive its own engagement by getting us to fight each other so much so to the point where we're like ready to, if not ready, like actually doing it, killing each other. And we sit here and have our little sign of silence or 10 seconds of silence, and then we move on to the next artist. We move on to the next. We move on. As if these aren't whole people who lived whole lives, bro, and had whole futures that were supposed to be lived and actualized beyond what profit they can make the industry. But again, the second you sign your name on that dotted line, it's not necessarily selling your soul. You're just selling off your complete salvation to the people that you've signed yourself to. And more times than not, if you don't understand this conversation that I'm about to give, or if you haven't understood before I'm giving this podcast, I'm telling you right now, it's not a signature that you want to give. There's... To make it very, very short and like simple for you guys, the music industry is basically a giant Ponzi scheme. But the people who own the industry, like, they're not holding, like, there is no regulation other than the people who own the industry. And they aren't playing by a fair game. They're just trading off all of their losses to people who are lower on the totem pole, who are more vulnerable to the consequences of not having a successful creative art career or music career, rather than taking accountability for creating an industry that's so hyper exploitative and kills not only the careers but the dreams of so many people generation after generation while making profit and wealth for so few people at a time. It's a I scratch your back, you scratch mine. The CIA says, hey, music industry, get a bunch of people who probably wouldn't involve themselves, whether it's in crime or in this type of behavior, get them to think that it's normal or it's cool or it's something that they genuinely want to do. And then we're going to ruin their life the second they realize that, hey, your first time going to jail, your first time getting a felony, your first time getting some legal issue, like you're fucked now for the rest of your life. And now the best thing that can happen is that you keep on coming back here and getting services by this prison system that you're enslaved to now. It's weird, bro. It's weird, bro. Like I couldn't have imagined that we get to a time where we're praising each other for going to jail, or we're praising each other for killing like our brothers or our sisters, or we're praising each other for being able to steal from one another, whether that's physically or it's materially, or it's just emotionally and energetically. And I think the only reason why I never expected a time like that to be so apparent or to be so like in front of our faces is because I just love my people too much, bro. I love everything that blackness is, and I love everything the world doesn't want us to be. I love every bit of us, and I know that we are so much more than the world will ever even allow us to be. It just seems like such a low fucking hanging fruit to just see us sit here and terrorize each other and bastardize our culture and make our ancestors so ashamed of everything that they've done to put us in this position to be everything that we can be. It hurts. But that's why I make these videos. That's why I make these podcasts. That's why I do what I do, because I feel like the perspective I have to contribute to this culture, to my people, to my world is what's needed right now. And maybe it's not the answer, but at least it's an opportunity to give us, the people, an opportunity to create an answer worth pursuing and worth following. Because it's not like we've had a handful of those that have worked in our favor. Past couple times we've had the opportunity to choose. Now, you guys should know, I don't even want to be the guy that says this, because something's telling me, with how horrible my luck is in this life, something's telling me that all the other videos and podcasts that I've made that actually I want to go viral won't, but somehow this will, and not even the whole thing, just this take I'm about to give, because it benefits Drake, and it gives some kind of intellectualism to his delusional fan base who won't let the boy lose. That's probably why they call him the boy. Because, if you want to be a man, you're going to have to learn how to do that shit. But I'll probably get deeper into this later in the episode. But for right now, I just wanted to say that when the UMG petition came out, not even the lawsuit, the petition came out, at first I was confused. I'm like, Drake, what do you want from this? Like, the best thing that you could want is for Kendrick to stop rapping. And you're not going to delete Kendrick. Like, we all know who's going to be behind that if Kendrick leaves us. And you're not going to sue Kendrick, because that means you just did the most suburban kid thing ever. I'm going to call my daddy. But instead of suing the kid that you lost to in the fight, you sue your daddy for not coming to protect you when you were getting your ass beat in the fight. Like, you see how stupid that sounds? You go to school, talk shit on somebody, they beat the shit out of you, and then you go home and you say, Dad, I'm going to sue you because you didn't protect me from this. Because all of that judo training, kung fu, karate shit that you've been training me for, it didn't help me. I just got whooped by a dude that doesn't even have clean draws. So again, the confusion that I had was going to be for not only what precedent, I hope I'm saying that right, precedent is this going to set in the industry? And then I realized it's not going to set any precedent, because it's just going to blow up the entire industry. And an amazing analogy that I made a handful of weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I won't give myself too much credit, was Drake is basically the arm on the body of an Olympian, right? He is like literally the arm of the whole body of the Olympian, right? Now, the Olympian uses their right arm, and Drake is the right arm, and the right arm has been winning championships, this, yada, yada, all that. Now, the left arm is a sleeper arm. Mind you, we just went out to do something in the real world, just anything, Olympian, and now Olympian's right arm gets broken. We use the left arm, and the left arm works not even like a charm, but like a dream. And now there's so much attention on what left arm is doing, we're almost starting to invalidate the success of right arm and question if right arm was the right choice in the beginning, or really at all. But right arm is feeling so insecure that its value is not being praised or worshipped in its state of turmoil, that right arm says, you know what? The only thing that I know how to do is, instead of, like, the only way I can get justice, because justice for the body would mean that I sacrifice my ego as an arm to do whatever is necessary from me to serve the well-being of the body. But instead, no. I think I, the arm, am the thing that got this whole entire body all the awards. I think I, the arm, am all the value that this body is, more than the brain, more than the liver, more than the lungs, more than the bladder. And if the body doesn't want to recognize me, the right arm, as more important, more valuable than anything that this body is or does, I will use this right arm and I will pick up a knife and I will run it through the heart. That analogy is exactly what Drake is doing. The arm doesn't even have a brain of its own, is so frustrated. It is weak and broken. It is so frustrated that it has lost, that it has decided to say, hey, you know what? Why don't I just end this for all of us? Nobody gets to win if I don't get to win. And the left arm, Kendrick Lamar, is like, wait a second. You're mad because I did what I was supposed to do, and that invalidated you and your identity? Me doing what I'm supposed to do? Like, I'm making money for our brand, for our body, which is UMG. I'm making money for, forgive me, which is universal, really. I'm making money for us. Like, this battle is making the UMG money. It's not, we don't care about Drake right now. We care about UMG right now. And if you shut up and just do what you're supposed to do, just kneel over and take the L like Jay-Z did to Nas, then maybe there will be a career for you on the other side of this. But you couldn't shut the fuck up. You couldn't just take it on the chin, bro. 40-year-old rapping to kids having ass. Couldn't just take it on the chin, bro. And look where that got you, bro. Look where that got you, my brother. And the executives at UMG, which I'll say that's the brain of the body, they're sitting here saying, what are you doing? Like, you're the arm. You don't even do anything on your own unless I tell you to do something. And you don't even get fed unless the body is healthy anyway. So you have to sit here and surrender to the decisions that we're making in the brain, in the nucleus of this being. Because if the body can't eat because you're mad and you're having a bad day, we're going to starve and die. And it's going to be your fault, right arm, because you decided to make your well-being more important than that of the body that you are at the mercy of. Maybe we put one too many golden or diamond rings on that right hand for it to think that it was more royal than regular. Maybe we put too many tattoos on that right arm. Maybe we put too much mask onto the right arm to make it forget that it is regular. And it is not only regular, but it is whatever it is behind the mask, as much as it is afraid to admit that. But I'm still going to stand on the fact that I believe Drake has a case against UMG, but the end goal of that would be to blow up the entire industry, which is stupid because he doesn't make money in any other industries other than gambling and selling, like advertising gambling online, that is, the new cigarette epidemic, to children. And then collabing with streamers that children follow as a means of promoting it. So instead of promoting drugs and guns and disrespecting or abusing women, now we're going to promote pseudo-masculinity and abusing your psyche and your dopamine receptors through gambling. Mind you, Drake's making his money off of the deal. He's not making his money off the gambling. And he's being given free money to gamble with first that you aren't being given. Just like in the music industry, he's given all this free brand deals and free sponsorships and whatnot that you are going to spend your cold, hard money on because you think it's going to make you cool like Drake. It's going to make you cool like Drizzy Drake. You want to be cool like somebody who's ashamed to show off their baby mom, bro? It's not my problem, nigga. But again, that's not the point. And that's not even no shade on his baby mom. That's all shade on him because that's just a deadbeat dad. That's just purely a deadbeat dad. And if Pusha never brought to light those Adonis allegations, we might have never found out that this dude had a hidden child. I'm telling you right now. But I want to transition us into, were UMG and Kendrick working together? Was this like some three of us are in the room having a conversation, but two of us are having another conversation on the phone after we leave this meeting, which is going to sabotage the one person who only showed up to the first meeting? Is this one of those situations? And I don't believe it's that at all. What I believe, though, is Kendrick already had an initiative to do this because those of us with more than 3 brain cells in our brain that communicate with each other all know that Drake, if he isn't already, is allegedly going to have some kind of documentary or some kind of a hit piece or something that exposes the fact that he's a lot closer to Diddy. Him and his entourage are a lot closer to Diddy than we're willing to accept. But it's because he's literally the golden boy of hip hop that we want to believe the two are mutually exclusive. Like if the dude's whole entire career and persona is a lie, what else could be a lie? He's acted. Everything we know of this man has been him acting. And not even acting like as Aubrey, or as a complex character, but like acting as Drake. And that shit's scary as fuck. But Kendrick's agenda was more from the perspective of, we need to get this fake gangsta suburban bullshit influencing our real black youth and our real marginalized youth. We need to get them way out of here, way out of the picture. Because those of us from the streets understand, and I'm not saying I'm from the streets. I've definitely been poor, but I'm not from the streets. But people from the streets understand it's not a lifestyle to glorify. Everybody. Speak to somebody who actually has lived on the streets. It's not a lifestyle to glorify. Now, what is inspiring is somebody looking at the impossible and conquering the impossible and maybe what they needed to do to get there, even if it wasn't what they were trying to make a career out of. That's inspiring. That's awesome. But not trying to make a lifestyle out of the things that you had to do when your back was against the wall. You don't have to do them anymore. And even worse, promoting this type of illegal activity and behavior to people who grew up in the suburbs with homes and families and support system and access to resources. And now these kids who do have access to resources are abandoning them to be somebody that they're not because they want validation that they aren't receiving being a regular human being in their regular life. Or they don't believe that the validation of being somebody who's actually a stand-up citizen and a law-abiding human being may be better than the validation they'll get from children and other devious criminal type people. for sabotaging their entire livelihood to be in an enmeshed community with other people who have no future and no fucking idea as to what's going on ever, other than like literally right now, 5 minutes ago, and 5 seconds from now. Kendrick needed us to know that this wasn't a I'm fighting back and forth with like two monsters fighting back and forth. This was a suicide mission, and it was, I'm going to go up in here and blow this whole thing up myself, because if there's real rap, if there's real hip hop, if there's real art for our people, we can create it again. But I will go in here with the sake of blowing up this industry from what we thought it was, or just at least exposing it for the lies that it is, so this rebirth can take place. But it'll never happen before the current heads and leaders and gods of this old system go down and perish with this same system. So Kendrick didn't even need to win. And I think that's one of the scariest things for people to accept. Kendrick never pursued this with the intention of being on top of Drake. Pause. Kendrick never did this for the sake of winning. Kendrick did this for the culture, for the means of sending a message and making sure that that message would stick as long as anybody who listened to this rap beef was alive. Because if it didn't stick in rap history, it at least was going to stick on the face of Drake, because with this little beef and this little whole suicide mission that Kendrick was going on, he ripped the mask of Drake off of Aubrey. But instead of revealing a regular human being behind the mask, it literally was so enmeshed into Aubrey's face that it ripped the skin and the bone off. And we see that they were damn near one in the same. Aubrey and Drake are one in the same. But not because they are one in the same, but because Aubrey would never get the validation that a Drake would get in his regular life if he never was this person. So he hid himself and his desires behind Drake long enough to be able to make money from Drake, so Drake could then on the back end feed Aubrey and feed and nourish those nasty, whether it's kinks or fetishes or desires. And they could keep moving like a machine. And mind you, he's not just protecting himself, Drake. Drake is being protected by the rich baby daddy, Lucian Grange, and by Universal. Because mind you, this is taking a suburban kid, putting him into a bunch of illegal activity and communities, and trying to make not only millions, but billions out of it. And before we go any further, I don't want you guys just thinking that I'm comparing Drake and Diddy because of like the sex crimes and the whole Diddy party stuff. The real reason I'm comparing the two of them is because Drake was never from the culture. Drake is an industry plant. Fundamentally, he's an industry plant. And if that's the case, we're planting industry plants who are not real artists. He's a great songwriter and a great performer. I'm not saying he writes all his songs, but we're planting somebody into an industry that is, the loyalty is not tied to the culture. The loyalty is to the owners of his brand identity. The second they're done with him, they pull the cards. All the cards. Drake is not, I don't care how many millions he has, Drake is not an executive. Drake is a high, super high level marketing agent. He is not an entrepreneur. He may run a couple businesses, but he does not run those businesses. He owns them. And it's just a means of expanding, again, the brand. At best, he's a brand owner, and he's the promoter of the brand image. But the industry needs to see what the culture is feeling by actually having real artists, like giving real artists opportunity, and then using their industry plants to parasite off of real art or to block real artist opportunity and then steal from those artists to build their own machines, which in this case is Drake. The white girl version is Taylor Swift. And then they can use that machine to gatekeep all the top spots, all the awards, and the entire era of whatever the culture is for their own well-being and their own award shows and their own catalogs at the mercy of all creatives and at the mercy of the entire creative industry. So think about all the careers that Drake had to leverage off of to continue to survive through all the different eras that we've moved through as hip-hop. Like, sit here and think. This isn't just like some multi-talented, like gifted person. This is just somebody who is interested in something or thinks he can like adapt his identity, his acting identity to a new persona, and then just starts playing that new persona if he wants to. Knowing that like as long as he can tie it back to Drake, like it's cool. And people will just make a meme of him for like a couple of months and then he'll continue to stay famous. It's the interesting thing though. The interesting thing is Drake has made one too many comparisons from his career to Michael Jackson's career. And I don't know if this is something that actually made Kendrick mad, but I know the Tupac shit made Kendrick mad as fuck. But the interesting thing about how Michael Jackson's end times with Sony happened to be. Now, I'm not going to make any allegations on if Michael touched those kids or not. That made Billie Jean. You think he touched them kids? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I believe that Kendrick knew that Drake was seeing himself so much so in the light of a Michael Jackson, not knowing that Michael was actually talented and Drake is just acting talented, that Kendrick said, you know what? If you think you're so Michael, why don't I give you the same fate that almost tarnished Michael's career? And why don't we put the allegations on you, brother? Why don't we let the world question your behavior that we have real, credible evidence for, video format evidence? I'm going to ask a question right here before I get put down, but what 30-year-old that you know texts a 14-year-old about anything? Let me word that question better. What do a 30-year-old grown man, megastar, what would he have in common with a up-and-coming celebrity 14-year-old actress? What would they have in common so much so that they need to spend private time together on a yacht? I don't care if nothing happened. I don't care if nothing happened. Answer the question for me. Again, there's a whole lot more where that came from. But like really, if you really, really, really want to get to the bottom of this stuff, be willing to have these conversations. Be willing to address. You are a superstar. There is at least one girl in every city that knows your name and would love some clout off of you that is of age. What is the fascination with hanging out with children? You don't even spend time with your own children. I mean, actually, now you do, because Pusha ended up reminding you that you're a dad. But you don't even spend time with your own children or the children from the neighborhood that you say you come from. But you're spending time with somebody else's child, daughter, for what? Maybe that's something that you just wouldn't understand if you didn't have a daughter. Or maybe you do understand. Allegedly. Drake, you're a sick freak, though. Don't let any of these laughs think that I'm laughing with you. I'm laughing at you because you're disgusting as fuck. Now, The best part about what Kendrick did, exposing allegedly rather than actively saying like, hey, you are this. And I know it says certified pedophiles in the song Not Like Us, but it's always alluding to or indirectly referencing Drake to be, because it's not defamatory, because it's not saying that Drake is. It's saying, hey, friend, even though you're definitely not that, I'm going to let the world have this concept in their head. And because the song is popular, the song is going to do all the marketing for the concept. And then I'm going to let them do their own research, because the internet's damn near the FBI. And I'm going to let them decide if they believe this. Because at the end of the day, the mercy is in who believes. It's got nothing to do with what the facts are, especially in this world we live in, with media literacy being so poor and literacy period being so bad. It fundamentally only matters what the people believe and what they're willing to accept. And if what you've done and what they are seeing aligns with believing that you are a pedophile, there's nothing you can say. There's literally nothing you can say. And that's just Kendrick being smart, intellectual, understanding the social climate. Because now you either don't respond and we're going to question that for the rest of your career, or you do respond and any response you give is wrong, because what do you mean? You're like, now you're giving it credibility? Like, now there's potential here. Like, now we've already had the evidence. We already had an allegation. And now you are giving the final piece of validation to this shit. Thank you. And Kendrick knew that Drake, I know you're not listening to this, but Kendrick knew that Drake's ego is so big, he has to respond. He tried to be played off cool on the Control verse all those years ago. He has to respond now. You think he's going to get bitched twice? Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me 2 times, y'all never get fooled again. Freaking baked beans, George Bush. That's a loser too, I'll tell you that. I hope to God you listen to this podcast too. You loser shit. All of you losers deserve to listen to this podcast, bro. Now, mind you, this is where Drake may have a case at, because this is where what makes Universal Music Group the ultimate gangsters, and on top of that, exposes that they are not working with Kendrick Lamar to defeat Drake. They are just trying to make money, like literally just trying to make money the only way they know how, driving engagement. And Drake is mad that making money for the business will sacrifice his status, legacy, and ability to make money for his own personal vendetta and personal legacy. And that is not a team player. That is a shipmate who thinks he's the captain and is willing to sacrifice everybody on the ship for the sake of proving that he's the captain in a world where he is not. But the only difference is that there isn't only one captain here. There's like 12 captains, and Drake is only one of the many, many, many shipmen that can have their cards pulled at any time. And this is also one of the reasons why I feel like that as much success as Drake has brought Universal Music Group, they will never see him as an executive in the same way they see Jay-Z. Not only because Drake can't run businesses like Jay-Z can, or can't do business deals like Jay-Z can, but Drake is... Not only is he, and I'll get in, you know what? Fuck it. Maybe, actually, I should probably explain this part right now. Not only is Drake not like us, like people of hip hop culture or just black culture, period, he's not like the executives either. Sit here and think about the way he grew up. And think about the loneliness that light skins face in a world where it's just such a polarizing split between blackness and white acceptance, or just whiteness, period. more times than not, light skins are born into situations where the family is broken, and if it's not broken and the dad's abandoned them, then the family, like the white side of the family, hates the black side of the family, and not only the black side of the family, but hates the fact that they are connected to a black child that they have to raise and care for or be responsible for outside of the mother. Now, outside of the family sense, he lived in one of the top end suburbs in Canada. Mind you, there's a hell of a lot of racism in the Western world. I don't know who created it, but there's a whole lot of racism. And the specific type of racism that light skins face is that they're not accepted by their white peers because they have too much black in them. You know what word I was trying to use. Even if it's a drop, the 1% rule, the one drop rule. If you had a black granddaddy 8 generations past, then you're a... He wasn't getting accepted because he was always, in their eyes, in the white people's eyes, he was tainted with blackness. So he will never be like them. But in our eyes, he grew up with them. He was raised by them. He was cultivated and nurtured by them. So basically, to us, black people, he is one of them. And even worse, a lot of his identity is rooted in serving that side. One, because they have a lot of money, but two, because they are willing to serve him financially in the ways that our culture serves him emotionally and spiritually. And if he can stay in the Drake persona, he gets to leverage the financing of the white side or his Jewish side, and also gets to leverage the cultural support and investment from his black side that he just only wants to take responsibility for when it means he's a gangster or like some kind of hoe getter. Initially I wanted to make that part its own like episode, speaking about just like how light skins feel lonely and like how we shouldn't invalidate that as people who aren't light skins, as much as sometimes they want to use that as like a crutch to like be mean or abusive towards us. But Drake doesn't like it. One of the things that I keep on wanting to bring up is that Drake doesn't have anywhere to go other than making Drake work. He's literally at the mercy of two binds: the community that's accepting him and the capitalist that's paying him. But he's only getting paid by the capitalist to infiltrate our community, to colonize our culture, and then to profit off of it for that capitalist, which he will get crumbs off of. But now, since we, the people, are seeing that, and we don't want him in our culture doing that nonsense anymore, and the capitalist is seeing that he doesn't work at the same rate that he could have worked at beforehand, now we're having real issues. Now, the community don't want him and the capitalists don't want him. And he's only exacerbating the rejection. He's only making it worse for himself by continuing to fight this as if he has some kind of like, I don't want to say altruistic incentive, but he has some kind of higher awareness that lets him know like, oh my goodness, I know who's being done wrong and I'll make sure that you never get done wrong again. But my whole entire career has basically been built off of doing every single person wrong because I wasn't complaining when I was winning. I only started complaining when I started losing based on the same circumstances that I used to be able to win in the first place. Now, this is why, what I'm going to explain to you right now, this is why I say UMG are the coldest, slickest, meanest. And I'm not saying mean as in like angry mean. I'm saying mean as in, ooh, that's cold. Like that's just so, that's what I'm talking mean. they gangsters, bro. UMG is gangsters. And you guys spend so much time looking at the gangster shit that's promoted on the TV or in the music. You don't see the gangster activity that's happening in the real legal world. And if you guys, but again, it's, you actually, to access that kind of world or reality, you actually have to educate yourself and to be participating in the culture and to actually care about the culture beyond capitalism and how much money you can make from it or how much money is being made from it, period. But that's what we do here. We analyze the patterns and we understand what perspectives to make, and then we share those with y'all. So what is that conclusion that I feel like I've come to that allows me to think, damn, UMG, y'all the slickest gangsters. Y'all even more gangster than any hood nigga you've ever signed ever. Well, here's why. UMG was not going to lose the Drake situation. And an interesting thing, and it's because I've been also doing my studying and my research on how the streaming era and Spotify transformed the music industry. Well, Napster, streaming, and then Spotify transformed. With this whole digital transition that we've made, record labels are very, very afraid they won't be able to continue to increase profits or maintain profits as we transition from this age of like really almost like industry destruction to this integration of artificial intelligence creators and artists. So, what is one guarantee you can have if you don't know how you are going to source new artists or end up profiting in this new music media marketing landscape? Well, you got to make sure that you have a powerhouse, like a heavy hitter on your team. And at the end of the day, Drake is one of them. Like pop star wise, in the sense that he can make pop hits that will go top the charts. That's just factual at this point. So an interesting conversation that I listened to that ties into this is, I think it was Steven Stout, who's a record label executive, or at least a music industry executive. And he was saying that if Drake decides to go independent from the label, he will destroy the entire music industry. Or he will pull so much money out of where it has been invested in, it will end up sabotaging to a great extent the music industry as we know it. So that was huge incentive for record labels to make sure that they were, or at least Universal, to sign that $600 million deal. Now, there was renegotiation agreements that were signed on that deal, meaning if the reach or the pull that Drake's brand has and the ability to execute itself isn't as profitable as it was at the initial signing, then the deal would have to be renegotiated, probably for like lesser terms, because $600 million is fucking crazy for somebody who is damn near at the end of his career. He's not making 10 years worth of more music. The wild thing is that Kendrick could make 10 years worth of music. Drake cannot make 10 more years of music. And if he does, he would have to make that music for new fans. And if not new fans, young fans. Like people who are still drooling over like getting their first girlfriend and getting their first $1,000. Not like actual adults or the people who have grew up with Drake, so much so that they grew out of Drake at the same time. Now, UMG says the contingency plan that we have for this Drake situation not working out, which apparently is what's happening right now, is why don't we just make sure that we put up an offer that Drake can't refuse? $600 million. And you're going to have to do 5 albums, which anyone could do. At least with that team and that backing, anybody could do 5 albums. And you got to go on a handful of tours and then just maintain this image that we have helped you create with all this money. Just don't fuck it up. Tell me why the only thing this nigga does is fuck it up, bro. The only thing. So, UMG is realizing, oh, we need to humble Drake to help him realize, hey, you're not an executive. Like, you're not one of us. but you're our prized possession, and we need you to keep on being our prized possession so our real executives can keep making money off of you and this culture that you are not actually connected to in the back end. And then we can all celebrate together with all these like stupid ass award shows as if it does anything to appreciate the real culture and not just award the capitalists who are able to buy the marketing and the distribution enough to have access to those levels of numbers. But we're going to tie Drake in on this deal, right? We're going to make sure that signing Drake, especially to that long of a deal, guarantees your company or your label the next 10 years being at the top or at least near the top of the charts. And then also being able to leverage Drake as an industry gatekeeper to destroy anybody's career who could sabotage the current state of the system. And if not the current state of the system, who could reconfigure the future of the system in a way that isn't maximally, if that's a word, profitable to the powers that are already existing there, which is the mob-ruled record label industry. If you want the only reason why you would sign Drake to a $600 million instead of something lesser than that, like $500 million, or really, which he should have gotten, maybe like 350, maybe 400 million if we're being like real honest, maybe 400 million. Only reason you're going to do that is to make sure that you blow all the competition out of the water. Nobody else is going to just out of the blue, especially out of the blue, sign an artist like Drake for 600 million on the back end of their career. Especially somebody who doesn't have any artists beneath them that are genuinely like superstar artists, like a Kanye West or a Jay-Z. Like this Drake's whole record label is just a creative artist concentration camp to just exploit any artist who wants an opportunity by using them to build Drake's brand and then shelling them off into a world where they have no support or help or leverage beyond that, because now they are an employee of the Drake OVO brand and they are not an active independent artist with their own career that needs to be invested in as well. But with this signing of Drake to such an egregious deal, you just eliminate all your competition. And then you incite the Civil War. Then you do the rap battle. Somebody's got a Russian roulette to the top of the board. Drake thought that he was spared from having to participate in this stuff. But record labels losing money. Spotify's losing money. Music is losing money. We need to have controversy. What is that controversy going to be? Drake. We're going to try to put you through the new age social media humiliation ritual of sabotaging your identity and seeing if you can pick it back up. Apparently, Drake did not have a conversation about this with the executives before they put him through the ringer with Mike freaking Tyson, Kendrick Lamar. But this is how the record label is going to win, by doing this. Regardless, two powerhouses arguing and spitting bars at each other is going to drive attention up to the industry that has no new albums or new artists putting anything off of any value. So at least you get to capture the attention economy while you have it. And beyond that, whoever loses is going to get humiliated for another couple of months. And then we can also create content and a whole culture off the back end of that while we're still waiting for new artists to invest in and to like transition off of this like 2010s era rap. The problem is Drake decided that he was going to not only underestimate his competition, but try to bury the competition that he underestimated, not seeing how much dirty laundry existed in his hamper. To just literally pull out and to just tell stories on stories on stories on. Pointed at his victim with one finger, not realizing that there was three fingers pointing right back at him with a whole lot worse shit than he ever alleged Kendrick ever did. And the worst part is that Kendrick made claims that can be supported by factual, credible evidence and information. You made assumptions to try to have a rebuttal. And even worse about your assumptions, you went and picked stuff apart, not for the sake of actually having a conscious conversation about them or making the world a safer place for victims of those types of crimes. You just did that to humiliate Kendrick. And further than that, humiliate victims of those crimes that you are describing, Kendrick is taking part in, making fun of them. This goes beyond you saying that you want to, you rapping to free the slaves. This is you making fun of domestic violence victims. This is you making fun of black people collectively and black culture. This is you making fun of other people's wives and spouses like you always do because you don't know how to respect a woman, whether it's yours or not. I mean, the only reason why your mom is still there is because you pay her bills. Be honest with you. So, and even what's funny is that you pay so much of her bills, she can be used as your own PR marketing stunt to promote you as this amazing son who needs to be cleared of all of your allegations and cleared of all of your wrongdoing because you're just so amazing to her and like she don't know where she'd be without you. Yeah, she, probably not breathing. It's the case of it's like the case of the middle school kid who like has a high school brother who like does a bunch of like degenerate shit, and that the middle school kid gets accepted by all the like degenerate high school friends, and the middle school kid thinks he's cooler than all his middle school peers because he's accepted by like the older kid crowd, not knowing that all those kids are losers too. Like you're just waiting to become a loser like them if you aren't already one right now. And the rest of us are actually enjoying who we're becoming, like with an actual future ahead of us beyond being a degenerate like human being. So what may look cool, what may look flashy, what may look hot right now, it gets what you think you want right now. You don't understand the life, the well-being that you're sacrificing to have access to that. And what you're going to be enslaved to taking responsibility for on the other end of finally waking up to that. But let's finish off this UMG being slick gangsters. Stop Drake from going independent. Make him sign the deal. And then once he signed the deal, force him to engage into a rap battle that you know he can't put up with. Because you know, we all know he doesn't write his own fucking music. And put him against a lyricist. Put him against a poet. And have Drake basically be the one that sabotages his reputation so hard that now when it comes time to renegotiate your deal, whether it's a year or 18 months or 2 years later, you can renegotiate for a lower cost than you initially offered, because this artist doesn't work the same way that an artist pre-rap battle, pre-losing a rap battle, can give you. Them dudes that looked up to you, it's going to be hard for them to look up to you being a loser. Them girls that used to glaze over you, used to look up to you, it's going to be harder for them to respect a loser. Them people that you used to call your peers in the industry, it's going to be hard for them to be used for your redemption story when you've never even given them anything, bro. Not even a leg up, bro, that didn't benefit you more than them. So, and it's weird, like I kind of want to feel bad for Drake. Like I really, really, really want to feel bad for him. Thinking like, damn, like you were really the final person to get played by the gangsters. You were the final person to get played. You thought that you were so apart from getting played and getting manipulated and like exploited. You sat down for a second and said, wait a second. I must be better than you niggas. And even worse, it happened so long, so much. You thought that you were clear of being punished and being consequenced by this system, if need be, to make the machine more money. Because if we're not making money off of new artists, and we're not making money off of a new culture, and we're not making any money because this is a freaking Ponzi scheme, now we have to start looking inside, internally. We have to start fasting the company. Start shelling from the inside out, seeing what we don't need and what can carry us into the future and what's dragging us back. Drakey, boo. Hilarious. And think about how interesting of a perspective that is when we also want to include Kendrick takes years off making music, and mind you, off Grammy award-winning music, to drop an album that is ridiculously introspective about his failures, his flaws, his understanding of his own masculinity and his own manhood, his understanding of the world and who he's becoming on the other end of becoming the person that he always dreamed of being. So much consciousness. And being able to put that on beats that allow it to be popularized and promoted and marketed to mainstream. But even deeper than that, for those of us who love conscious rap, we were able to be fed as well in a world that only likes to give us mumble rap. And I'm not saying mumble rap's wrong, because I know Future could rap bars as fuck. But in a world where everyone's copying each other's lack of lyricism and lack of creativity, it's beautiful to know that real creative artists still take time and put that shit into their work, bro, and still release projects for the people, not just playlists. But I don't even know what Drake was thinking, attempting to step to somebody whose last project was Mr. Morale. When Drake's last couple of projects, I'm going to try to rip them off the top of my head. For All the Dogs, Certified Lover Boy, what's the other one? Heartbreak, what we can get from this, like the understanding of just that ratio, if you want to call it, is Drake only continues to reinforce that he is this Peter Pan playboy that cannot grow up. There may not be an intention to grow up, one, because I'm pretty sure the things that he has access to being Drake, he would have and probably never will have access to being Aubrey. But even worse, he's a tool of an industry that seeks to exploit the vulnerable, seeks to exploit the uneducated, seeks to exploit those who don't care for or respect themselves, if that's what they choose to do, if they feel it's cool enough to do it. And he can create this whole multi-$100 million brand selling literally like corporate doctored agendas to fatherless boys like himself, inspiring them to pursue heinous, criminal, illegal activities and lifestyles as a means of gaining the acceptance that they never received from their family, from their dad, or from their peers that actually would have cared about them being something of value in this life, not just sabotaging their reputation, especially over a couple bucks. Drake is Peter Pan, bro, and we need to have conversations about this type of stuff. Especially, I speak so much about patriarchy and patriarchal psychosis and how it creates this pseudo back end for men to think that we've become men while completely abandoning the responsibility that men take that inevitably forces us to decide what kind of masculinity that we express in this life. And I think, and it's probably not the main reason, of course, but I think one reason why Drake even calls himself the boy is this subconscious knowing of his, I think I'm using the wrong word, but his lack of desire. I was going to say non-desire, but it's just The boy is literally just the definition of Drake's inability to accept the fact that he has to grow up at some point. He can't be talking about, oh, Kiki, you were 23 and we was going to the movies. Like you're a grown man. And even worse, the people that supported you in your career are grown people too. And they would like to hear some growth. Isn't it crazy how grown and growth both start with the 4 letters grow? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be Bill Nye the Science Guy here. But I would like you guys to truly hold on to these perspectives as we're having them. Because it doesn't make it doesn't make any sense to me that you guys are even thinking this is a 1-versus-1 battle. Like, this is Kendrick and the culture, which is infinitely more powerful than Drake and the capitalist. Because at the end of the day, the capitalist is going to shell off anything that serves their ability to maintain or create more of their capital, even if it's their own kin. And that's one of the things that Drake will never want to accept. At least those of us like black people gave him a chance in our community. Them other people that's paying his bills don't care about him. And deep inside, they don't want him either. They don't even like him. They just love that he gives them 2 feet into our community, not only to surveil into our community, but to promote negative agendas into our community while validating people who don't have access to our community to do things that people in our community like to do. And then bastardize them outside of us, and not only bastardize our culture, but promote the bastardized culture to a means where it destroys our community and then also invalidates our people and invalidates our real creatives who actually have something to say and contribute to the collective consciousness. Because you guys think that money or music is just a 9-to-5 where you exchange music for money like content instead of an actual spiritual field and ecosystem that every human being can contribute to, whether it's consuming or creating or cultivating or just being a part to appreciate what is created. But you can't have that perspective when the only thing you think about is capitalist has money, gives money, gambles on opportunity to make more money, and anybody else who thinks they matter doesn't. As we conclude this section right here, I want to ask you guys. I want to ask you guys a little question. Or maybe just tell you guys something. You ever think that Drake could go home and do a toy drive, or like a holiday meal, like giveaway, like in his hood? That's right, he wouldn't, because he wouldn't need to, because all of those people that he grew up with, if they aren't very financially stable, like multi-generationally financially stable, they are probably gambling on other people's livelihoods that are actually living the hood life that Drake thinks he promotes. Whether it's by investing in housing projects, investing in private prisons, investing or divesting and actually destroying the Department of Education. Pick your few or pick them all, because they're all happening at the same time. But Drake has nowhere to go, and I need all of us to remember that. The second we, the community, the people, the culture, reject him fully, what's he going to do? Start streaming? Like, what's he going to do? Start gambling and create a career off gambling? This was I don't think, especially if you're like a black person, you might not realize how much power we have in our ability to bring somebody into our culture and how life-changing that is for them. So much so that if they aren't smart and like humble, they will become like Drake and they will think that they are more than they are, to the point where they end up sabotaging their own eligibility into accessing our culture. But by that time, it's probably too late, and they've probably brought their whole entire Ku Klux Klan of friends to join in and bastardize everything that is black and holy and righteous in our community. So I guess we can sit here and question where the hell is Drake going with this case if he's suing the machine that created him. Going back to the analogy I made, I don't know how long ago, because we've been recording for like an hour and a half right now. But going back to the analogy of the arm, or forgive me, not even the arm analogy. This is the son suing his dad because he got his ass beat in a fight. And his daddy wasn't there to protect him. So, like, what like, what are you gonna do? Sue your daddy, and then your daddy's just gonna put up with it? He's not gonna say, "Well, you want to sue me? How about you get out of my house? And how about you go to the house of the people? How about you go to the house of the people that told you that suing me was gonna be a good option? And how about you go find somebody to train you to fight because you lost, meaning that you sue me shows that you're I'm not gonna say it, but you know exactly what I'm about to say right there." And it definitely isn't a man. Like, sit here and think about how narcissistic this is. Just 1 second with me. A dude says, "I'm going to risk the entire industry because I can't take an L." And not only that, I was told many times during this rap beef, shut my damn mouth or else I will be exposed in ways that I don't want to be exposed. And I couldn't do that. And I go and disrespect this man. I disrespect his family. I disrespect his children. I disrespect his friends. I disrespect his idol, his hero. I disrespect his culture. I disrespect his community. I disrespect his history, his intellect, his consciousness. I disrespect everything. And he ain't even touched me yet. But because he decided to say one thing that I couldn't win, I couldn't come back from, now the whole entire game has to end for everybody. Now we have to blow up freedom of speech for everybody. You know what? Maybe you don't understand this whole freedom of speech shit because you're a Canadian and you're not an American. Maybe that's the issue. Because we Americans do shit hella different here. Hella different here. We don't be suing people over freedom of speech. Maybe some people have been doing that in recent years. I apologize for them. They aren't like us either. But you're a rapper. Like, and especially if, in this day and age where like you aren't even getting RICO'd for doing stuff like real rap gangsta stuff. Like, you're just doing rich white boy stuff. I lost. I'm going to call daddy to sue. Like, I can't get over the fact that it's every legal professional that I've listened to in the past like 3 weeks has been questioning, knowing that you can't, like, Drake will not sue Kendrick because that's the most loser way to go out in a rap battle. But questioning what's the point of all of this if it's not to just blow up the whole industry. If it literally like a child who loses candy saying, if I can't have my piece of candy, then I'm going to scream the whole entire way home, or I'm going to scream until I get it. And just make everybody hate all of us. And mind you, a lot of this, it may not be all, but a lot of this has to do with, it's not like Drake can't lose. He just can't go back to who he was before he had the success and validation that came with being Drake. Because it's not just a normal life that you go back to, especially like these people in the music industry and these entertainment industry people. A lot of these people are narcissists or incels or like absolute loners outside of this shit. And like loners not by their own choosing, loners by rejection because they're literally just like creepy people. This whole like mainstream media, social media era, like internet popularity has given a lot of people who would have never, ever been anything in society leverage like gods. And to take the power of a god away from somebody who was never supposed to be anything more than a slave, and if not a slave, just a foot soldier to a master, you're basically showing somebody heaven and then sending them to hell. And I don't think anybody, especially anybody with like a decent mind at least, has the ability to put up with that. It's not human. It's not human at all. And what's even crazier is that it's not just that he can't go back to who he was outside of all this validation and all the girls and the money that he's getting. If you really think about it, Drake would have to go back to people who are like him, but now he doesn't have the financial or the status, like the class leverage over them. He'll just be like them. And what people is Drake like outside of his identity being Drake? DJ Academics. And that's another reason why I think he'll never speak to Academics, is because they are literally one and the same person. It's just one person who is able to be the rap star, and the other one is just the dick riding internet junkie who doesn't know how to have his own opinion if it doesn't mean that it's like... Actually, I already said too much. But just like a paid OVO marketer. And if you guys don't understand what OVO is, it's Drake's record label, October's very own. But one of the issues is that Drake would have to go back to people that are like him because he has no home to go to, whether it's Toronto or it's like an actual like loving family inside a home that cares about him. He doesn't have that. He has to be outside in the streets, taking people's girls, manipulating girls, doing all that like dumb, like corny shit, the real corny shit. Not liking Legos, bro, and watching movies all day or watching anime. The real corny shit that's abusing and disrespecting other human beings outside of their own conscious will. That is corny, bro. And now if you take away the leverage that Drake, the identity, gives him, now he has to be this narcissistic piece of shit without any power, without any leverage, without any money, without any other girls to make you think that like, hey, look, this dude's actually cool. Girls like him. And then he'd have to struggle like the rest of us. And them rich people are not cut out to struggle like us. That's why even if they can't make any money, they will promote wealth inequality to permanence, as long as it means that they don't have to live like a poor. Amazing. Amazing. And as long as Drake continues to be successful, he can just lead the pack of these incels that are following him, but be so far ahead of them that he never has to engage with them or actually directly interact with them. But if he loses his power and his status, then he's going to have to be in community with them, or he's going to have to isolate himself, or he's actually going to have to change. And the scary thing about believing in somebody like Drake or like a narcissist has the ability to change is you never know if any of the changes are real, because the change was strictly for acceptance. It wasn't for actually needing to like change the self to be something more than what they were. It was just to go cling on to that acceptance, which is usually created by like a severe lack of self-acceptance and awareness anyway. So, like, I'm at this point, we've been speaking here for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And even I'm sitting here questioning, what the hell is Drake outside of this? Like, what? And this isn't, and I'm telling you right now, I'm going to have to make this a 2-part podcast. I apologize. But this isn't the end, bro. Like, the sensationalist media, this exposure porn media, which I like to call it, and not like exposing people's naked bodies, but like exposing dirty laundry about people, secrets, allegations, like, it's only going to get worse until the current mainstream media model blows itself up as well. But that is going to take a lot longer to happen and going to create a lot more damage in way of doing that than the music industry just blowing up and leaving Drake behind. It's so wild, bro. And you know what? We're gonna get to the conclusion. Actually,
have your attention, please. The library is closing in 15 minutes. Check your items out now. Okay. The library is closing in 15 minutes.
Okay. you heard my dilemma. So what I'm starting to see now is that Drake was the only reason he would desire to sabotage the music industry for what it is, like blow it up for what it is because he knows if he has to follow through on this deal that he signed, not only is he getting a substantially less compensation package than he would if before the beef, but on top of that, he has to work for the next 10 years promoting an image that has already been killed, shot in the back of the head by Kendrick Lamar, who doesn't have to prove anything to anybody ever again. Drake is the one who will forever, as long as he's in the position he's in, fighting for acceptance from one community that literally hates the other community, and he is the medium between them. And it's going to be very interesting to see if these guys figure out a new tool to use to exploit black culture for white profit. And if they can't, is this the end of the music industry? Or is this going to exacerbate the time? Not exacerbate the time, but is this going to speed up the time that it would have taken to have artificial intelligence artists to supplement a actively, currently failing music industry? Because you aren't making the same sales off records and off digital discs, or not off physical discs anymore. And especially with COVID ripping out touring revenues, bro, we have another one of those. It definitely won't exist. But for what's happening right now, I still have a whole other hour and a half to get into on this. So thank you for being here with us today, honestly, and for catching up through that first part of the episode. And just know, next part's going to get even better. It's going to be even better. Stay tuned. All right. I was going to start this part by saying welcome back, but you guys aren't necessarily returning to anything. It's just me returning to the library to keep this episode going. So I guess it's just a welcome back from me, and a thank you for continuing to extend your attention span to continue to receive this episode. But as I have decided to, I guess, somewhat make this a second part because we have a handful of other theories and conversations and to have and concepts to get into, I want to start this second part with another theory that I have as to conversations that may be happening in the back ends, the higher back ends of this music industry that could have protected Drake before he ended up setting himself up for his own demise. And again, I am not sure if we can genuinely pit this as the cause for or the beginning of Drake's demise, because there's so much brain rot and just degeneracy in the younger generation due to social media and lack of actually having community and being able to apply intellect and experiences in the real world. They may just blow this over as some random thing that happens and not really see this as a tearing of the mask that is Aubrey Graham behind Drizzy Drake. So that's what scares me the most, the collective, the youth. And this has probably been happening for generations, whether it's for all types of artists, and even artists that I used to love. But the youth are going to be the ones that have to decide that they don't want to submit to the illusion that is Drake anymore. I don't know what it's going to take for that to happen. Something in me believes that there's going to be a holistic revolution of all types, of all industries as well, leading to people being so depleted in their regular lives due to AI and all that integration. But we still have yet to see about that. But let's get into the theory that I have as to a conversation that may have taken place behind the scenes. And you guys will see right here how pride is really the devil, man. Pride is really, really, really the devil. So, and it's interesting because I don't think that Jay-Z necessarily picking Kendrick Lamar over Lil Wayne for a Louisiana Super Bowl was a spite at Drake or a spite at Lil Wayne. I do believe that Kendrick was chosen for the Super Bowl for the sake of him having, the biggest song in hip hop and winning a rap battle. That's one of the reasons. But even more so than that, it's as much as that is Lil Wayne's hometown and his city, we can all accept as just like grown adults that this stage of Lil Wayne's career should probably be spent more on him taking care of his health and his well-being and all the things he does behind the scenes, rather than attempting to continue to portray this image of rock star life and constantly in the limelight every single day, because we're obviously seeing the detriment that it is doing to him, and it has done to him over the years. And if you've been to or you've seen a live performance of Lil Wayne as of recent, it is 2025 this year, so I'm saying it within the last 18 months, I think you would agree with what I'm saying there. And we can respect the legacy of Lil Wayne without needing to constantly force him to prove that legacy through these events and through constant showcases, when we know we would rather remember Wayne how we remember him on top of the world, rather than letting him unknowingly tarnish his own image and us allowing it to happen and then being disappointed that he's not the superstar rock star that we knew him to be 20 years ago. So I believe more so Jay-Z not picking Lil Wayne was out of respect than Jay-Z going in the direction, because I'm saying his relationship, Rock Nation and the NFL, he has a pretty fair say in this. Kendrick has the pop-in song. But mind you, Kendrick would have never had the most pop-in song in America if, one, we've said this in the podcast already, Drake didn't underestimate the opponent. But even worse, I believe that Drake did go to Jay-Z. Before this got big, before this situation got out of hand, Drake did go to Jay-Z. And then mind you, this is me assuming that Drake is smart. Like, not just so egotistical that he's just ignorant to anybody's opinion but his own. But that could be the case. I'd say allegedly, because I don't want to put that on anybody. But if Drake was smart, which I'm assuming he is, I genuinely want to believe he is, he goes to Jay-Z and says, Jay, you had an issue with with Nas, and Nas came around and ethered the shit out of you, which could have ruined your career, because he even made allegations of you having relations with an underage woman in the song. And the song was popping. The song is, like, currently popping. So how, and this is me speaking from the perspective of Drake, how would I, Drizzy Drake, be able to not only skate over these allegations, serious allegations that actually have real world evidence to back them up, but continue to maintain my position on the top of the rap and hip hop leaderboards, while also being able to exploit all future talent for the next 10 years so I can solidify this $600 million deal that I just signed like about 18 months ago. Because, it's not, hey, here's $600 million in cash, now go make music for the next 10 years. It's, here's a $600 million, basically, this is not too technical, but basically here's a $600 million advance, and you better go make us a return on this. Meaning that not only does Drake have to make $600 million, because that will fulfill his deal, he has to make more than that to fulfill the return on the investment of the investors that are grouping money up like that to pay for him. This is why it's important for all of us to get into understanding, like once we put the cups down, once we put the smokes down, and I'm not saying you have to stop that forever, but once we stop escaping the real world and being so overwhelmed by it and really feeling like we can participate in it, whether it's through our intellect, it's through our application, it's through our beliefs, then we can start seeing, oh my goodness, there's a whole business side of this shit. And we can not only participate in that, but in understanding that, we have the best way of truly predicting how these circumstances can lay themselves out, rather than constantly being shocked as if we're being surprised by these new things that are happening every single day. But that's not the tangent I'm trying to go on here, so I apologize for that. We will have more of those business, financial discussions in a place where they're more applicable. But for now, we're talking about Drake making fucked up decisions and destroying his whole career. There's an important quote or reference that I have to add in here before I continue going, because we've established up to this point that Drake said, Jay, how am I going to address this situation while maintaining the career that I still have to fulfill to hopefully, which I think is Drake's major goal, reach billionaire status in the rap game, but on top of that, be the most decorated, accoladed hip-hop rapper in the game as well. So how am I, somebody who is not from this culture, trying to do two things that are damn near impossible for anybody who actually has lived the hip hop life, actually lived the black culture experience life? How can I achieve two things that are impossible to them while skating off of their entire community and not returning anything for them, only investing in myself? And mind you, my loyalties aren't even to the black community that this culture is accredited to, that has allowed me the opportunity to make so much profit, spreading so much propaganda, spreading so much lies and just nefarious influence. Now, as somebody who has actually lived that street experience, not just the black experience, but like the street experience, and I'm not speaking about myself, I'm speaking about Jay-Z, I'm speaking about Kendrick Lamar, I'm speaking about people from this actual like hood culture. And mind you, this isn't even just hood culture, but this, like, the emotional volatility is also attributed to our black culture. And mind you, white supremacy doesn't allow us to look at that with appreciation. It only allows us to look at that with resentment and to make us feel like we're animals. But because we don't understand or have the tools or accommodations to properly emotionally regulate ourselves or even express ourselves, more times than not, trying to do so in the emotionally like intense way that we are used to or prone to will end up destroying our community, or at least putting us in the light to be consequenced or having our humanity taken away. But again, these are conversations we're going to keep having as long as we have these discussions on this page and as long as I have access to freedom of speech. And I can pay my bills, of course. But people who are in black culture understand how intense these back and forths can get. And mind you, if you've listened to hip hop and rap culture at all over the past 10 years, over the past any years, since any of these beefs have happened, many have led to people actually dying. And again, this is why I say Drake isn't like us, especially in filing a lawsuit, because you got to sit here and think. He knew he was going to go and throw shots until it got too much, and then he would rely on his legal team to do the rest of the work that he couldn't do with his rhymes. Us in the black community, many of us in the black community don't have access to legal teams that you can pay $100 an hour to. And even worse than that, legal teams you can pay $100,000 an hour to help to hopefully solve your legal woes. And then take the years that it may take to reach decisions. For the, mind you, not the guarantee, the potential of justice. Behind these beefs in our community, people actually lose their lives. And that's why I believe, personally, if Drake did go to Jay-Z for advice about this situation, Jay said, do not, like, literally take it on the chin, leave. And a handful of other reactors have said this, but I'll just kind of bring it all together. Leave the country or leave American culture for right now for at least 18 months, 9 months to 18 months. And let this blow over by reminding the people, hey, you know what? I'm a multi-hundred millionaire, assumingly. I haven't checked your net worth. Like, I can do everything you can't do, not just anything, everything you can't do. So I'm going to spend this time doing that. And hopefully, as the artist I believe myself to be, I can also develop some new inspiration as to what I want to communicate or what new genre I want to colonize and then exploit an audience from. And then come back with a great body of work, come back with some new sounds, come back with some new flow that you probably stole, come back with new energy and act like this never happened. Act like I'm too politician, I'm too cool for you to even think that you can accuse me of the things that you've accused me of. And the fact that you even did that makes me want to drop out the race, because now me even acknowledging that is showing you that it's giving credibility to it. But Drake says, you know what? Drake's ego is so damn big and he's so tired of being the light skin that gets disrespected, the light skin with no community to go to because the blacks don't like him and the whites don't like him, and he has nobody to run to and nobody to love him and accept him. So Drake needs to prove himself for light skins everywhere. God, I wish I could insert that Tyler the Creator is it Odd Future? The clip. We are light skins. Yeah. I wish I could insert that so hard, bro. Something in me believes that Drake blew up so in alignment with the era of light skin fetishization and the explosion of social media that I don't think he ever came out of that era. Like, I don't think he ever realized that dark skins are on top. Hell yeah for Black History Month, Black History Year. And even worse than that, he doesn't realize that all of what he is receiving is coming from the Drake identity. And not only the Drake identity, but the Drake identity that is manufactured and protected by UMG, the same UMG that he's attempting to turn around and sue and punish because they weren't protecting him in the line of fire that they sent him out to make money in. Now, the reason why it's a lot different for Jay-Z trying to give advice to Drake than us trying to, or not even trying to, but just looking at how similar the stories of Drake and Diddy are because even if there were any kind of ridiculous allegations that were had to Jay-Z's name, he has a wife, and not only a wife, but he has one of the biggest pop stars of all time, like of recording music history and damn near celebrity history under his wing. So for Jay-Z's ability to not have any type of real legal issues or problems, but still maintain some decent composure with the limelight that comes with not only being one of the biggest rappers in the world, but also having the biggest pop star in the world as your wife, it's a lot easier for people to believe, well, he's respecting his relationship, that it's a very, very, very public and very scrutinized relationship. So we should assume that he's not doing anything nasty behind the scenes unless we can figure it out. But when you don't have that marriage that can represent you as like not only a decent human being, but a respectable and responsible human being, and you also don't have kids that you're taking care of with other, like your partner or another human being, it's a lot easier for us to question, how come you're running through all these women, but you can't actually hold a stable relationship? How come you keep talking about running through these women again, but you're not able to be a dad until it gets presented in a rap battle, and then you have to lie to the world as if you were trying to protect your son from the scrutiny that he would face being your son, which inevitably Kendrick Lamar would reinforce in Meet the Grams, but forget it. Now, I'm going to enlighten you guys to another side of life that you may not be familiar with, and I apologize for doing this because it's going to ruin the fantasies, the Santa Claus fantasies you have of some of your favorite celebrity relationships. Most of these billionaires are cheating on their wives in the way that you believe cheating is to be. Most of them are cheating on their wives. Most of them are doing nasty stuff with nasty people. And mind you, don't look at those words with shame because I love nasty, nasty, nasty as long as it's clean. But most of these people are they're in relationships for the sake of validating they're a human being outside of all the terrorism they're committing in the business world that inevitably affects the communities that they're exploiting for capitalist gain. Like, if you only looked at somebody like Jay-Z with, like, not a wife and just quote unquote, saying this again, running through, well, actually, I don't even have to quote unquote that. I was going to say running through hoes, but if you just look at somebody like Jay-Z as a billionaire who's just running through hoes but can't make can't develop or maintain a stable relationship, over time, you're going to start to question him and his ability to be just a healthy partner and a healthy human being, on top of seeing what, or questioning why is so much wealth and power being hoarded to this one individual to not serve a greater purpose, which that could be a community or a family. So for a lot of these billionaires, like, the whole sake of getting married is not like for love. If you guys believe it's that, you guys are fucked up in the head. For many of these guys, it's just to, like, protect their image. It's almost like a part of the PR stunt. So this is how you can start having or start exploring the theories as to many of these people, whether it be Diddy, allegedly, or the Hilfiger CEO. A lot of these guys are able to hide, especially with money and power, are able to hide their real, not only sexuality, but their real behaviors and their fetishes, which I think are more significant than their sexuality. I don't think we should judge anybody for their sexuality. They can hide those behaviors beneath a stable relationship. And mind you, we live in a world where rich people can just pay for stability in a relationship, and that can put you in a position to maintain the image of healthy nature and like healthy relationship, more so than somebody who actually has to struggle with like paying bills and like working a real job and being separated from their partner many hours of the day and all types of like real human issues. But Drake may have received this information, if he did receive it at all, because the way he acted like he said, I'm not going to listen to you, or I don't give a fuck what you say. So Drake says, you know what, I'm gonna go and end Kendrick, because nobody's listening to Kendrick Lamar in the club. Nobody's listening to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers in the club. Nobody's bumping his music. None of the girls are listening to his music. None of the real players are going on drills and listening to his music and blah, 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 blah. I'm assuming that's what Drake was thinking, because that's how the suburban white kids who was wearing do-rags and saying the N-word at my high school used to act. And that's the kind of shit that they'd used to make sense of in their brains. Underestimating, and again, I think we made this reference earlier in the pod, but the funny thing is the ego of the fake gangsta suburban light-skinned wannabe white kid was humbled by the artistic nerd black kid that more times than not usually gets isolated and rejected more so from the traditional black community than those fake gangsta suburban kids. All because there's more validation and respect immediately that comes from having that hard, hyper-masculine, especially as men, hyper-masculine, fierce, animalistic image skating above the law with the potential of losing your life or your freedom. That is more enticing, especially to like the ignorant, immature youth mind, than it is to be inspired by, say, a poet, or it is to be inspired by a chef, or it is to be inspired by somebody who's actually cultivating a skill or a gift or attributes about themselves that they can share with the world and actually create real lasting value with, to not only supplement themselves, but who they're providing for. But we've come to a time and place in the culture where finally the nerd black kid, Kendrick Lamar, and the suburban gangsta, Drizzy, have come together to a place where their careers can look each other face in the face. I don't believe this, but numbers-wise and all that bullshit-wise, we can say their careers can come to a place where it is reasonable for them to throw blows at each other that makes sense. It is not just the predator preying on the prey. It is not just the bully preying on the victim. This is two men, supposedly, that have the opportunity to throw blows at each other and handle this like men. Drake forgot his whole, like, he is not, and if he actually listened to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, he'd realize that Kendrick was actually showcasing us a story of his personal development as to Kendrick Duckworth, like beyond the identity that is Kendrick Lamar that the world has received him as, or the world decided to accept him as. Showcasing the development, the acceptance, the growth. And I've already had this kind of little freaking monologue with you guys before. Earlier in this, I already know I gave it to him. And now everyone's going to call me glazing. Fuck you guys. Kendrick has been doing the work. And again, a lot of you guys are going to say, well, he's not in the streets protesting. He's not doing this. He's not doing left, right, this, that, this. Okay, you can't do everything. That's what a community is for. But Kendrick has been doing the work. So from this position where Kendrick is literally questioning Drake's masculinity, there is true validity there because Kendrick has done the work himself, and Kendrick has been vulnerable enough to share that with us. Drake, on the other hand, is continuing to perpetuate the Peter Pan model, the I will never grow up as long as these girls never age. What's that quote from that Dazed and Confused? Matthew McConaughey, one of the greatest lines in movie history, probably. I'm not saying this because it resonates with me. I'm just saying that because it resonates with the perspective we're giving here. He says, you know what I love about these high school girls, man? You keep growing older, and they keep staying the same age. Mind you, that is not a sentiment that I resonate with myself. That is strictly something that I'm using to reference this Peter Pan mentality, pseudo-masculinity of I can continue to recycle fresh generations of young people that I want to exploit for my own personal pleasure and my own financial empire at the mercy of having any generations of kids who are genuinely inspired to create art and to invest their true creativity and experiences in this artistic medium to actually influence the culture in a positive method or a positive way. And also maybe on the back end of that, inspire future creatives to continue to do the same and continue to uphold a culture that allows true creativity to lead the pack in front of all the corporate propaganda and marketing that is being pushed ahead of it. But of course, when you're not from the culture, when you're not like us, you forget that what makes the corporations happy and what the corporations are feeling isn't always aligned with what the culture is feeling. And Drake, being a product of the corporation, seemed to forget that he is Aubrey, an employee of the company that is UMG, and responsible brand representative of the identity that is Drizzy Drake, the recording artist. Literally an actor playing an acting role in real life, being supported by a multi-billion-dollar machine that needs to sell products and propaganda in the real world beyond the music videos and the TV screens. Please tell me that rhymed. And if it did, give me that record deal. Now, where Drake fucked up was thinking that it was just going to be a numbers game against Kendrick. Like, what club was going to play more and who was going to react the hardest. That's it. He didn't know that this was actually like a dagger coming from the culture that felt disrespected, not only by Drake, but by every single person like him and every single person that he's let into the cookout that has no reason to be there, but to bastardize and destroy the culture that we have spent so much genuine time birthing and creating and cultivating. In spite of all the issues that we have as Black Americans in a world that don't want us to be the fullness of who we are. So apparently, because this is this is what happens when you get set up to fail as hard as this. Drake didn't listen to anybody and said, you know what, I'm going to do this for the sake of my career and saving my masculinity. I'm going to go take somebody else's masculinity away from them just to have my own exposed as to not being there. Because I was going to say strip for me, but when you don't genuinely grow up as a man, then what masculinity is there to take from you? And the Peter Pan syndrome is something we have to keep on tapping into. I'm not saying that you don't grow up if you don't have a wife or if you don't have kids, but when you don't take responsibility for not only what it means to be a man and just making money, bro, and being able to go take girls on dates, but truly your emotions and who you are and your intentions and who you are beyond the identity that's serving you and validating you, then it's hard for me to say that you're anything but a boy waiting for the world to come save you, mommy to come save you, daddy to come protect you. And at that point, what are you other than a beneficiary of the real man? Which is a conversation that Drake has to have with himself. And the pursed lip selfies he keep on taking. Now, this is the more I have this conversation or I expand on these ideas I'm giving, I realize this is all to protect not only Drake's identity as he travels the world attempting to sell this illusion that is well beyond dead. Especially as like a 40-year-old man selling it to 20-year-olds and really 15-year-olds, because who's buying the current rap game right now? Drake was waiting on leveraging UMG for the Jay-Z deal, which was, hey, you become an artist, you bring us a bunch of artists, you sell a bunch of products, we'll make you a billionaire. It's way deeper than that, and you actually have to be a businessman beyond degenerate outside of your brand identity. That's why it was successful for Jay, and that's why it's not successful for somebody like you, Drizzy Drake. And the crazy thing is that Diddy, as horrible as a human being as he was in his private life, was a better businessman than Drake was. But something in me believes that Drake thinks he's on this golden boy status because he doesn't have any serious blackmail that they can use to just sabotage his perspectives or his career. But that's what he doesn't get. He may not have any blackmail on him to stop his credibility. I mean, he has real evidence that to block his credibility, but he forgets that he can never, ever be more than the master or the hand that's feeding him. And he will only ever be a tool that they use to reach communities that they can never connect to, so they can keep overindulgently feeding themselves. That's why we get a lawsuit. Because this has nothing to do with Kendrick, bro. Really, the only reason it has anything to do with Kendrick is because Drake and the UMG agreement is breached right now. The bastard to billionaire agreement plan has been breached. But tell me this. Drake does not have a Rihanna or a Kanye West, and beyond a Kanye West, a whole entire generation of freaking trap, rock, punk stars beneath him to support his identity as this person that could even go independent or that could be anything other than the whatever UMG is always offering him for these record deals. And an even crazier theory that I have is that UMG just needs to, and really the majority of the major labels right now, they're riding out their major stars, and they're just gonna dead any new talent until they can find a way to create the AI artist in a way that allows them to have infinite songs, infinite radio, infinite content, basically, to never need an actual real artist again, or at least to create competition so intense for genuine artists that the only thing an actual creative artist will do will be working for one of these machines that are an industry plant, that is literally a robotic industry plant. Mind you, that's a theory for like 25 years down the line, but anything can happen. Anything can happen. Especially as there's no talent being cultivated or sought out or farmed or anything. There's simply, we are giving people who are on the back end of their career more than 8-figure deals, bro, as if they're some like eternal youth machine. Now, to conclude this little section about Jay-Z and his involvement in this whole thing, which he always happens to be involved, but like not publicly, politician-esque, I think a small percentage of the reason why Kendrick was picked for the Super Bowl, especially with the potential of playing Not Like Us and really just putting a rusty knife in the back of Drake's career, or what it could have been, is Jay said, you should have listened to me. Brother, I gave you an opportunity to go about this in a way that not only would save your career, but it would really teach your ego a lesson, because it would show the whole entire world that you're just so much more than them. Like, not that you're a bitch or like you're a loser because you're getting disrespected. You're just so much more than petty disagreements, petty accusations and allegations. These people can't even fuck with you. And that's one of the things that I hate to even call it this, but like a real nigga knows. That's somebody that who has been on one side, both sides, the other side of true gun violence, on the other side of true violence, on the other side of real gang and street activity. That's anybody knows. When two grown men really get at it, somebody can lose their life. And that's another thing you guys don't get in the suburbs, bro. Like, you guys can always you guys can talk big game, and then the second somebody gets hit, like somebody gets a black eye or somebody gets a bloody nose, then you can just call your dad, and then the lawyers come in. And the second lawyers come in, so-and-so is going to jail for 3 years. But you don't think about people who don't have lawyers, people who don't have backup or support or nothing, and all they have is their survival skills, and they know that they're about to lose their life right there, bro, if they don't really boot the fuck up. So all you suburban kids that be wearing do-rags, bro, and be saying the N-word, bro, and be doing your rap music, I really want you guys to think about this stuff. Do you think about the consequences that social media is not showing you? Do you think about the true implications of what it means to carry these identities, bro, and to ride in this world? Or is it just entertaining, reacting to it and watching it on YouTube all day, bro? Because now Drake is sitting here complaining in that same rap music. He's fearing for his life as if he's not in the industry that has taken so many lives of our black and brown people already, for the sake of making this industry that does not compensate us properly as much profit as possible. But it's because the people who he's loyal to are on the side of exploiting and profiting. And the only reason he gives a fuck about the people being exploited are when he becomes one of us, not when it actually matters. And that's what we need to recognize here, all of us. He does not care about the independent artist doing this lawsuit. He doesn't care about the industry. He doesn't care about anybody but himself and his own ability to profit. Because the only time he gave a fuck was the second he got booted, punted off the throne. And now we get to see who the real man is, bro. The man behind the mask. And apparently there never was one. And really sit here and think about this, because we're going to really, really line up this Drake and this Diddy situation. Jay-Z has never bit the hand that actually fed him. You know what's crazy? Dame Dash, who was Jay-Z's partner, and probably the reason why we even know Jay-Z, Dame started to bite the hand that fed him, and Jay-Z said, you know what? That hand, even if it's white, it's feeding me, and I'm not going to bite it. And that hand kept on feeding Jay. Dame is the one who's spiraling now. Mind you, Dame has a lot of good stuff to say and a lot of good experiences to communicate, but who's the one who's not in the financial situation similar to Jay-Z? Especially after all the money he's made this industry and all the money that got exchanged as a consequence of the work that he's done, not the work that other people have done, that he's done. Now think about Diddy. Ciroc is a failing company. Diddy comes in and what? Turns that thing into a $300 million company? I'm not saying he's the business man behind it, the business infrastructure guy. But mind you, When you're able to turn up something like that, that's just like what Yeezy did. But again, Yeezy don't have no weird case like y'all be having. Yeezy just be a weird dude, and I attribute that to the autism. But Diddy goes and saves the Diageo company from having to sacrifice Ciroc, and then continues to infiltrate and destroy our community with more alcohol, as if we need any more than the shit that we already have. We're already getting crunk enough. But Diddy goes and makes these Europeans even more billionaire than they are. And what does Diddy do? Diddy's like, oh, you guys are being racist. And what do? Open Pandora's box. So it's like, sit here and think. Drake, you're biting the hand that feeds you. It's not even the record sales or the industry plays or whatnot that is feeding you. Your record label pays you. They make all the money off you. They're pimping you. They cut you a check on the back end of what you're producing. They put a bunch of people there to work your business, to work your systems, to develop your brand, to do all the back end stuff so you can just coast and live this life as this real life actor who gets to act your career in your real life and gets to cosplay a bunch of identities and colonize all these cultures and start a bunch of beef that you can use other people to write raps for you on, or you can set up lawsuits about. But you're living in this complete fantasy to where you're biting the hand that's feeding you. So you don't want to work with them anymore, but it's crazy because they built your whole identity. So go ahead, try to build a new one for yourself. You're not a record label executive. And if you are, it's not even a real record label because you exploit the artists that go there. You don't have any real businesses. I don't care about the Nocta Nike deal. You're not a designer. You don't have any real business talent outside of this. You don't have access to any kind of real connections that are over the age of 25 years old. Because that's the community that you have to exploit to maintain relevance in your industry. And you forgot that, hey, you know what? Maybe you should be an actual businessman on the other side of having this rap brand that you're selling to kids, so you can actually have real world credibility when people want to sign you to more than just record deals. Prove that you are more than just really a glorified streamer, an outdated rapper. And this isn't me saying that Drake can't write no music. This isn't me saying that Drake ain't no artist, bro, because he's made some good songs. Him and his team of writers have made amazing songs, allegedly. But it's forgetting that. And I was going to make honestly like a YouTube video or maybe even like a TikTok before TikTok got banned. I was going to make a TikTok on this, but it's hilarious seeing, like, especially black people living under capitalism and white supremacy. You tend to forget that all these systems of oppression tie into each other. And there's certain black people who forget that they get so validated and so much money that they forget they're black. And when I say that, I'm not saying that in the sense of like they start acting like other kinds of people. I'm saying that in the sense that they forget that when they break the law, they are going to get punished to the full extent of the law and have all their dirty laundry ripped out from under them and put on Front Street for the whole entire world to abuse them over. Like, this isn't just no like, every single politician was involved in a trafficking ring. Like, let's just not address that and hope that the world forgets that existed. And let's hope the world forgets that there was Harvard professors on that plane that was going to Jeffrey Epstein's island. And let's forget that Donald Trump has made multiple occasions, and Bill Clinton, and a bunch of other people, and Oprah Winfrey has made a handful of occasions, and Bill Gates has made occasions to Jeffrey Epstein's island. And now it's weird that we know that island was for no other purpose than to traffic children, and we know a handful of the people that were there and the names that were there, but we just don't want to push the needle any further than that. But when it comes to Diddy, we're going to rip every single thing out. Freak off this happened, sex worker here, blah, like. Or think about how the Diddy situation was happening all this time. Mind you, this is not me being on Diddy's side. That's a horrible human being. And that's somebody who deserves to get punished to the full extent of the law. 100% for way more things than he's been accused of. But we go through the whole entire sensationalist media Diddy debacle just to reach the Hilfiger CEO doing damn near the same, if not worse. The CEO of Tommy Hilfiger doing the same thing, running a trafficking ring of potential models, underage potential models, that he was forcing to gain eligibility for access into their modeling careers by trafficking them, either himself or to his billionaire friends through these parties, which has inspired me to make a whole entire episode on the modeling industry, believing that that's glorified child trafficking. But that Hilfiger thing only lasted about a week in the news, and we forgot about that. We just called that a bad apple. Because when it's again, I know you guys might call me racist for this, but when it's a white person, it's a bad apple. When it's a black person, it is the entire community. Y'all love doing that, and I need you guys to stop doing that and start attributing people's crimes to their personhood. And then we can start getting demographic statistics beyond on the other side of that. Once we start holding people accountable for the crimes they're committing, not the color of their skin. But you guys have already bastardized MLK's quotes enough. I don't even have to do any of that extra work for you niggas. Can come to at the end of this, I guess, is that UMG isn't trying to kill Drake. Okay, I shouldn't say it like that. They're not trying to end the identity that is Drake. Aubrey Graham is well and safe. They need to respect his well-being as just a company protecting the livelihood of their employee. But this is reminding Drake that he is just a glorified marketer of a sales company, and they're selling music, and they're attempting to sell that music, a physical product, in a digital era called the streaming era. And Drake is somebody who has been, luckily, able to ride the wave and coast from top of one era into the next, but we never really knew why, other than his just perfect timing in the industry and ability to just have the coldest rhymes for so many years in a row. And I'm not talking decades, I'm talking so many of those pivotal years in the transformative era. Because if you're somebody who's able to create consistently good art in an era where people aren't creating necessarily well, or, which was the time I'm referencing now, a time where everybody is competing and creating a lot of great art, but you're the one who's consistently creating the top great art, But now we're entering another transformative age of the recording industry, the music industry, as we are trying to figure out how do we address artificial intelligence and that integration into the creative arts industry as a whole, not just music, but creative arts collectively. And will we need superstar artists? Or will we be able to integrate with AI? Will we be able to supplement with AI? Well, how will this transform how we even perceive and receive art for what it is and even profit off of it? Because there's so much changing. And allowing somebody like Drake to either sign a different record deal or to go independent would not only put a huge dent in the company that is UMG, but this is not the era to start something fresh, like completely fresh in. This is an era where, from a business perspective again, this is an era where you want to have your heavy hitters to at least keep you in the competition while we are figuring out what the next desired consumable is beyond traditional art and traditional music. And that's what I think Drake is really being used as the levee in between this next transformative era of selling music, if you want to call it that. Personally, as an artist, I don't believe you can genuinely like sell music, because music is something that anybody can create, anybody can hold on to, anybody can share. Capitalism forces us to gatekeep things and then put money as the access point to gatekeeping those to scale people who should probably just be everyday people into billionaires, and then have them lose their minds and further gatekeep and destroy access to essential aspects of our society. But Drake is at a best case scenario, he's being humbled so he can rebrand his career and then live another 10 years off of the rebrand that he does now. But now, since he's been able to go through the humiliation ritual that I believe this was, then he's not going to have to endure another one to the same severity again. But again, because he did not take the L properly and he just keeps taking L after L after L, trying to defend his old identity, then let it shed the ego that it is and grow into this new identity that is maybe Aubrey, but, or just another version of Drake. And then all parties involved in this rap beef, Kendrick, Drake, and UMG, can all appreciate the fact that this was one of the most stimulating experiences and events in rap history. In the 2020s, but in recent rap music history. And everybody could have won if everybody wanted to play their part, because everybody's acting at the end of the day. But the problem is that Drake has been acting for so long, he forgot that he's an actor and he's supposed to be playing on script. He thought that he could start writing the scripts. You're an actor. You're not the screenwriter. You're not the investor. You're not the director. You're not the producer. You're an actor. Play your fucking role. And that's something he thought he was too high and mighty to listen to. And look at the consequences. You bend yourself over thinking that you can talk down to niggas, and all that you do is get your head punted into oblivion. And now you don't even know who you are anymore. And now UMG actually has to go about potentially releasing you or sabotaging your career. Now that you did what you did, not because they had the intention of doing that before, but now they actually have to sabotage your career. Because now you have to reboot, or else nobody is going to believe you. Nobody's believing the old shit anymore, because Kendrick already put that to rest. Now, if you don't create something new that's genuine, that connects to real people, you might as well start selling cars, bro. But actually, you know what? You're already selling online gambling addictions to 12-year-old kids. So maybe that's going to be the next $1 billion move that you have, instead of trying to sell drugs and guns that you don't even use to children. Because when have you sold any real products or services to like actual functioning adults that can be applicable in genuine society? Oh, that's right. You haven't. Mr. Businessman, Mr. OVO, Mr. Entrepreneur, Mr. CEO. Get the fuck out of here. And really, at the end of the day, in these contract negotiations that UMG is going to have with Drake, the more I have this conversation, the more I feel like an entertainment lawyer. In these conversations that UMG is going to have when renegotiating the contract over into the next era, it's Drake's fault that his negotiation price is going to be reduced, or his compensation price is going to be reduced. He never had to respond. He could have redirected. He could have reverted. He could have evaded. He could have traveled across the world. He could have gone to a different country and done something else. He could have actually done something for the kids in his neighborhood that he says he comes from, if they're not all rich already. They not like us. They not like us. Oh my God, bro. Real pain in my heart, bro, for people that believe this bullshit. But like you're not worth the same value that you were when it was actually easy to sell the dream that you were promoting. Now you can't sell any dream. You can't even sell a lifestyle, because it's like you're 38 or something. You don't have no wife, you don't have no kids, you don't have no community that actually you can go home to and respects you. You're like a glorified like 8-figure roadie. Just constantly traveling from hood to hood to like look for a daddy. You're a suburban kid traveling from hood to hood looking for a daddy. Think about that. But this really, to conclude the little aspect of that as we get into our future psychic analysis here, Drake could put, with this case, if he wins, he will end the industry. The music industry as we know it will be over. And I don't know if he wants to end it in the way of him getting just the largest payout in music industry history from the industry. And then him saying, I'm going to be Santa Claus and redistribute all of this to the independent artists that I blocked from having access to mainstream playlist on Spotify and all streaming networks because I am God. So I don't know if he's going to do that and be a Mr. Santa Claus charity soldier, or if the intention is to destroy the industry because he's such a loser that allegedly, mind you, I'm not trying to get sued, he is allegedly such a loser that if he can't have success or be on top of the throne in the music industry by means of his own raps and rhymes, then nobody gets to enjoy anything from the music industry, and the whole entire thing should be imploded from the inside out, and he should be the one that does it because he's Superman. And this is all because he lost a rap battle. Mind you. Are you starting to really see that Kendrick just set it off to the point where Drake could not even write the rest of the joke. Drake could write the rest of the story to its conclusion of his career. And we're all watching it. If you're willing to just sit here and see, it's almost like shining sunlight on a vampire or something and just watching him burn. And just sitting here watching all the different, the shape-shifting that he's doing, attempting to become a streamer, attempting to do this, online gambling, attempting to do this, all this type of redirection and confusion, apart from addressing the inevitable destruction that is this fake gangsta image, Drizzy Drake. That is still dying to prove that he deserves validation from not just the hip-hop community, but from the black community, period. A black community that he's not even from the same country of, because what about the black community in Canada? How come you don't fuck with them? But again, because it's not popular. The nigga is just a pure narcissist. Now, this would probably be an amazing time to getting into what is the future of the creative industry? Not just the music. What is the future of the creative arts industry as a whole? And what type of lifestyle, what type of path are creatives going to pursue in this newfound future that seems very, very bleak, and a lot more bleak than it does positive? Potential theory here, which is the first one: AI artists will be a thing, and they will be a consequence of, because in this artificial intelligence world, not only do hardware companies have to merge, but software and tech companies have to merge as well. And there's going to be, and especially this, okay, now we're getting political. If Donald Trump's administration ends up taking Lena Khan out of the FTC chair position, then we're screwed. As regular people, we're fucked. I hope you guys understand that. Because these guys, the giant companies already that are already monopolies, are going to now merge each other and further monopolize themselves to make the tech oligarchy have about 5 major companies that own every single company everywhere in this country. And literally everything will be an extension of a Google, of an Amazon, of a Meta. Can't even think about the other one. Or of an open AI. Everything will be owned by one of these tech companies. And mind you, let's talk about the $500 billion, $100 billion of that guaranteed investment into AI that the Trump administration just signed. And mind you, Trump doesn't even know anything about AI. The only thing that he read on there was that they were glazing him as a great new president that can lead the future and save America. That's the only thing he read, and then he signed it. So we're fully committing to this AI shit. The only thing we've seen is that OpenAI has stolen information from digital archives to train its AI to then basically be like a glorified Google. Nothing else. But you know what you do to gain access to hundreds of billions of dollars when you haven't proven anything at all? You tell them that you're going to cure cancer. Mind you, if it took us all the way to get to AI to cure cancer, instead of addressing things like climate change, addressing things like poverty, addressing things like lack of access to widespread and national health care, addressing things like not having access to healthy food and diets, not having good sleep routines, not having access to sunlight, living in petri dishes from 9 to 5, if you have access to employment at all, taking drugs that are literally lab grade, like lab tested, and having no access to holistic medications and plant medicines that exist being grown outside. Like, we didn't go through any of those other methods, but we're saying that AI is going to be the thing that cures cancer. You know, if I want to be honest with you, AI might be the thing that actually creates a new disease in relation to the radiation that is inevitably going to be a consequence of attempting to create these data centers that cost $50 to $100 billion to create, and on top of that, drain the world of energy and water. Like, I used to think that I was crazy until I realized that no. We're living in a crazy world, and we've just given the reins to some of the most sociopathic people on planet Earth who are in a cult, a startup cult, thinking that they're going to save the world from other people exactly like them, from people who are being consequenced by that same exact world. Those people are you and me. Everyday people, not just Americans, but everyday people who won't benefit from this new AI tech wave that they're selling us. We won't benefit from it because we won't have enough money to access it. You want to know how I know that? How much was the first Apple VR product? The Vision Pro, you guys remember that? How much was that? $3,500? You think you could afford an iPhone if it was $3,500? It's a freaking car payment. And I'm not talking about a car payment. That's a used car right there to wear glasses on your forehead. Think. Who, in a world where minimum wage has not been raised, but the wealth of the billionaire class has exponentially increased since COVID, mind you, since one of the most, the worst disasters, health disasters and crises of the 2020s of the modern age. Like, you got to be sit here. All right. What's the perspective I'm trying to give with this? Because of the mergers that are happening, Meta, which wants to colonize the entire, I'm not just going to call it networking, but Meta wants to colonize the entire communications space, the entire attention economy, and the entire digital communication space. For the sake of, if Zuckerberg doesn't want you to say it, you can't say it. And if Zuckerberg doesn't want anybody having access to your opinions or your perspectives or your organic content going viral, then he can block that as well. Or he can stifle that down in an algorithm that means nothing for the sake of only promoting people that are willing to pay for advertisements. Because that's exactly what TikTok's about to turn into. You will never be able to get organic reach on TikTok unless you are paying for ads, because that's the only way that Instagram is profitable. And mind you, Instagram is not even as profitable as TikTok. Well, you have to pay for ads to get access on Instagram, and Instagram doesn't even pay their fucking content creators. So mind you, the platform that cared about the users, that cared about the creators, that cared about the people who actually give life to the platform was bought out by the one who doesn't give a shit about anybody but their own pocketbooks, and turning their CEO into a trillionaire. And then using every single naive person who wasn't already alerted as to Zuckerberg's lizard activity through the Cambridge Analytica scandal. All of us are now at the mercy of Zuckerberg training his AI off of us, our content, and our time on those platforms to then eradicate the need to have creators or real, genuine, like real people creating user-generated content on these platforms and giving people a desire to participate in this new age media economy. Or landscape, forgive me, because there's a lot of aspects of the media landscape that don't have anything to do with economics, but are necessary to have skill in. Meta is going to merge with, allegedly, I got to keep saying that because I feel like I'm a couple years ahead. Meta is going to make a merger with Spotify because Spotify is a dying company and really should have never been a company in the first place. But record labels needed a means to beat out Napster before somebody came out with a Napster Part 2, which would have made an individual person, if not a team of like 10 people, billionaires. So the record label industry uses Spotify to continue to milk out profits of not only new artists, but of the current artists that they're needing to showcase in the digital streaming era without losing profits drastically. Spotify is not going to make it another couple of years because Spotify is horrible to their creators, horrible to the artist, doesn't value the fact that nobody cares about Spotify if there was no content on there. The same way that nobody cares about Meta if there was no content from actual users on there. Those two are going to merge, and the AI content creator and the AI artist machine is going to be used, like I've been saying probably 10 times already at this point, to eliminate the creator economy. Stop everyday people from being able to go viral with their opinions and their perspectives, especially their dissenting opinions against the tech oligarchy and the American government. Stop people from being able to expand their brands by taking just videos in their rooms and sharing it off like organic virality. Double down by forcing everybody to pay for exposure. So Zuckerberg literally becomes a trillionaire off of the attention economy instead of allowing fair competition and other social media platforms to balance that. Spotify is going to utilize AI artists. And I think Lupe Fiasco's situation with trying to make a Loop AI radio where it's like a 24/7 AI radio with new songs all the time. He's going to lead the pack, the pioneering pack of sabotaging what it means to be a creative artist. And this is me saying allegedly too, because I know he's going to get on here if he hears this shit and start shitting on me. Well, all right, nigga, sit down while I say this. This is just using a real artist to make credible the technology that is now going to be used to auto-generate as many songs and potential word schemes, rhyme schemes, lyrics as possible and concepts as possible. So no organic artist can genuinely feel like they're making their own art that hasn't already been AI generated. So instead of an artist saying, oh my goodness, look at this cool song I just made because I went through this heartbreak, or I went through this tragic loss, or I went through this amazing time and I want to share the emotion I'm feeling, so I put words to it and now it's a song. Because AI has already generated it. But the difference is this. AI generated that song because it's a machine with a database of information that was told, hey, generate a bunch of music. It was told to generate music. It wasn't with the incentive of communicating the emotion. It wasn't with the genuine, I want to make sure I'm saying this properly. It wasn't with event or emotions, internal inspired me. And because of that inspiration, now from there, I can create art from that. And that art is going to resonate with other human beings who have the ability to feel emotions. Maybe not live the same exact experiences as me, but to feel emotions. And that is the connectivity that capitalism seeks to profit off of so much. But capitalism doesn't realize that you need real lived human experience that the AI cannot do, even in robot form, to create that. And you need to cultivate real consciousness. You need to cultivate real culture. You need to incubate real creative artists in real creative spaces and environments to have access to that. And that takes time, that takes investment, that takes belief, that takes support, that takes a lot of pain and struggle. But the current capitalist doesn't have the ability to do that. And one of my favorite venture capitalists of all time gave this perspective as to the current venture capitalist industry and why he was disappointed in it. Don Valentine, I'm pretty sure that's his name. He said, we used to be investing in companies because we truly believed in the founders, that they had a vision and they were going to actualize a vision. They just needed support that they couldn't get elsewhere other than from this funding. Now we have a bunch of venture capitalists who are just throwing money at projects hoping to get rich like it's some gambling scheme. And many of them fail. Most of them fail on most of their deals because they don't care. And again, this is me paraphrasing at the end here. But what I received from it was Mr. Valentine is saying that you have to truly be invested almost spiritually in these type of projects that are either visionary, that are artistic, that are creative, because you are taking a belief out of the ether that people cannot see until you actually actualize it and prove that you've actualized something that is of value, of applicable value. And many people will never be able to see the visions in the same way that you see them. The only way they'll be able to meet you at the pace that you see your visions is once they've come out of you and once you've actually done the investment and gone through the struggle and the process that it takes to bring them out. But we live in a world that has been enslaved to convenience, enslaved to the ease or the hope that there's a rich or a get quick scheme to save us from the inevitable work that everybody has to do, taking the stairs to reach the top of the mountain or to reach the top of the building. So that's why I believe the whole AI artist thing, it's not going to be a thing for long. Even if it is, it's not going to be a thing for long. And the only people that are going to give validation to it are going to be the people, like the human artists, who think that their career is forcing them to create against the AI artist or to use AI art instead of just saying, you know what? These rules of this game that is being played, that is strictly for capitalist profit at the mercy of literally a creative artist's soul, I'm not going to play against it. I'm going to take this time to not only be an artist, because why would I, a human being, compete against AI, knowing that I am the one with the soul, I am the one with the human emotions and the energy? Why don't I take time to live new experiences? Why don't I take time to not only enjoy myself, but to explore what life has to offer and explore how unique my perspectives are? Remember, in this AI age, and I know I'm speaking a lot and I'm speaking very fast, so forgive me. But remember, in this AI age, the leverage that you have against artificial intelligence is the fact that it cannot live a human experience and connect that to an internal, chaotic, infinite field of feelings that it has to use its mind to reason between. And this is why I'm going to create another episode on here soon called What Religion Will AI Believe In? If it knows everything, then it wouldn't make any logical sense to put itself at the mercy of a belief or its own desired to be held beliefs if that could risk its well-being, rather than just staying consistent with what has worked in the past or what has proven to work. Now, again, we'll expand that conversation, AI, religion, in the future, but it's the AI's inability to believe in anything and truly connect to an infinity other than that which is the master that is instructing it will be the thing, again, that stops it, or another aspect of what stops it from truly being able to surpass the genuine, like, creative artist long term without just like blatantly stealing art from digital archives or from already owned catalogs and IP licenses. And this is probably a good time to explain as to what the future of the creative artist will be in this age where the record labels try to save themselves and sabotage everybody else by introducing AI artists. But real creatives are going to go underground. I know we already started having this conversation like 5 seconds ago, like 2 minutes ago, but real creatives are going to go underground. They're going to live real human experiences. They're going to develop skills in new areas in their lives. A lot of us are going to find out that we are more than just musicians. We are more than just artists. We are more than just this. We like to cook. We like to create new types of art other than the one that we do best. We like to read. We like to meditate. We like to go to the gym. We like to meet new people. We like to hang out with the friends that we've held close. We like to work on projects. We like to build businesses and brands. Like, this is the era where you as a creative person realize that you are not just the artist that was compensating you or paying your bills. This is where you find out how creative you can be with your life and your energy, and then how you can project that into the world to receive as much compensation as you can so you can continue to invest not only in your creativity, but your creative lifestyle. Because that's one thing that they try to like make us fear, not being able to maintain compensation or not being able to maintain income while we're living this creative life path. But forgive me for that. In a world where artificial intelligence is about to eradicate all low-skilled labor, other than like slave labor, I'm telling you right now, the only people who are going to be safe are those who have those non-traditional creative life paths. The people who genuinely created a lifestyle on the other side of what they believed in, what they're interested in, what they cared about, rather than people who only pursued a lifestyle because they were hoping to receive the validation that would compensate the self-acceptance that they could never reach within their own selves. This is, it's going to seem like a drought, and people are going to be craving music. And I'm telling you that there's going to be new opportunities for new artists and new little like kind of quick trends and whatnot. But there's going to be a real pause in like genuine artistic like output, especially in a time where not only is an AI artist being created, because an AI artist, you can tell them when to stop being political. You can tell them when to stop being emotional. You can tell them when to be more gang violence and more druggy and less conscious and less respectful. You can master them. The real artists, they're working off inspiration, and that inspiration is in the mercy of their own inner infinity that they have to tap into. But once they do, then they're living through that. And you can't control that. You can only stifle that. You can only compress that. You can only constrict it. But you can't control it. You can only hope to ride the wave and create as much profit off of this before it freaking blows up in your face, which it inevitably does. But if you want to check out, like, especially if you want to check out the graphic that I made in relation to the new creative industry, go check out that Death to the Entertainment Industry and AI is going to Save Creative Artists video I got on my YouTube channel. That is huge work, bro. And you guys, you guys are definitely going to be able to rock with that. And just understand, I'll kind of describe it in short here as to what I think the new industry is. Where the old one was the capitalists seeing an opportunity that the community has a need to be served. This one was entertainment and leisure, and also creative expression. So the capitalists ended up just becoming the middleman in between the community and the creators, while exploiting the shit out of the creators and becoming the most valuable aspect of this equation or of this formula. But in a world where there is highly skilled technology, like human level highly skilled technology, now that's a completely new employment opportunity. Like that's a completely new branch of the pie to include into revenue sharing of this creative industry. And the only way to truly understand how we can distribute that in a way that accommodates everybody is understanding that the four groups that need to be compensated by creative arts, more than just monetarily, but culturally, are the creators, the visionaries, the pioneers, the artists. And even we can add the content creators, the people who showcase and market and share those. The AI tools and the highly skilled laborers that are able to surpass destruction of their jobs and their industries due to the AI integration. Then there's the consumers and the people in the community. Those are the people who will not only receive the culture, but also be almost like affiliates of the culture and referring it to new worlds, putting it in new communities and sharing it with the real world on a grassroots level. And the final person will be the capitalist, the one who was able to profit so much, so heavily off of this industry, especially these creative industries, while not compensating anybody, because usually it's been like mobsters or like actual gangsters who have run the shit. So it's like, what are you going to say other than like losing your life if you complain? Or like being exposed or having like these like blackmail tapes thrown on TV. Those four groups that I just described have to decide what the priority is, who needs the investment, who needs the support, who needs to be authoritative, who gets control, who gets say, like that. But that is the new industry. It is either going to be the capitalist eradicating creators, like genuine creators and artists, from the entertainment industry and just using these AI tools and the highly skilled workers that promote them or that develop them, using those to further enslave the communities by way of individual consumerism? Or will the creators and the communities and the culture that ends up being created by the two of those, will that be the priority and the capitalist class only be the funding vehicle to support the AI tools that are used to create and literally like incubate, create, and expand beyond all types of creative artists? Because again, I don't know if I said this in this podcast yet, but AI is either going to be the great equalizer or it is going to make wealth inequality permanent forever. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. AI is the great equalizer, or it makes... And I say that after knowing that the pandemic turned so many people who should literally still be working 9 to 5s. It turned so many people who don't deserve access to more than $100,000. It turned a lot of them into millionaires. And now those people are hoarding that money and utilizing that money to build their own empires of nothingness, taking more money and more opportunity outside of the economy, forcing regular people who actually create the culture worth participating in, forcing us to live lives that we don't choose to live and we don't want to be living. And as of late, really not even as late, as the past 2 years, but really the past 6 months, I've been going so in on building this software company that is really supposed to be like a social media, if you want to call it that, but way more expanded and new age. And in my research for creating that, I've been doing a lot of listening to the CEO of Blue Sky. I hope I'm getting this name right, I hope I'm getting her name right. Jay Graber or Graber. And I really am starting to believe in this future of decentralized platforms and how important it's going to be for all the participating parties of the platforms to, in a very democratic sense, understand how much we all need to humble ourselves in order to meet the goal of the community, rather than creating communities that are a bunch of individuals who have their own individual needs to meet. If you want to hear more about that, go check out our, I think it's called Developing Conscious Community video on YouTube. We got a lot of content coming out the brain, so you go check that out whenever you want to. I believe in this decentralized platform, this revenue sharing, this collective ownership type model that the future is moving into, especially with creator-based or community-based platforms. And as somebody who is a creative artist myself, I want all my creatives to understand how important it is going to be for us to participate in a world that literally feels like it's blowing up in front of all of our faces, or we will not be needed in it. I'm telling you right now, it feels like we're being rejected from a world, or we're being our gifts and our talents are being bastardized by artificial intelligence. That is not going to replace us. It is going to amplify those of us who actually are creative artists, because it is only a tool that real artists use to better develop and express and broadcast their art in a world that is almost completely codependent onto the digital era. Now, if you're still here, watching this, thank you, because hell yeah. But I'll conclude this video on a pretty good note, or at least a mic drop level event, so you guys can go the rest of your day feeling however you feel, but hopefully with a little bit more love in your heart for me than you did before you started this. If you consider yourself to have a creative calling If you think you're a non-traditional life path person, you feel like you're a creative artist, you feel like you are more than what your circumstances have set you up to be. And I'm saying not just like you're poor and meant to be rich. I'm talking about you thought you were supposed to work a 9 to 5 and you really think you're supposed to be self-employed. You have to create your path. You have to create your path, 1. And 2, conquer the circumstances that are right in front of you. An important thing to say before I keep going here, creating your path is on the other side of following the calling that is coming from inside the house. So how about we just restart this? The calling comes from inside the house. You decide to pick it up. You decide to go on that self-discovery, that self-awareness journey to decide what it is that is calling from you to be expressed into the world. You decide to create a path to do those things, to put that soul that you have sitting inside you out into the waking world, because you know that's what you came here to do. From that, you conquer the circumstances that are immediately in front of you every single day. Simple as being able to take care of being able to wake up and brush your teeth, or if it is going into that crazy corporate meeting where you're going to have to risk your whole entire company's safety because you're the CEO and you got to put it on the line for those people because they believe in you. Whatever it is, conquer the circumstances right in front of you. And from there, don't force, allow your life to change based on the decisions that you're making and the changes that you have made to the things that you can actually control in your immediate circumstance. And let it all play out, man. Let it all play out, bro. I really believe that there's going to be a dead period, but if we are able to make it through this dead period and then there somehow happens to be like a surplus of money and actual like genuine entrepreneurs and people who seek to create opportunity in this world, I'm actually starting to believe that we could have a renaissance in the West. I genuinely believe we could have a renaissance in the West. And maybe not in the West, maybe it takes place in Africa, because so many people migrate out of the West because it's just like turning into 1850s America again. But there's going to be a renaissance that happens again. And if you're a creative artist, understand that this current industry that is completely funded and rooted in capitalism, it has to implode itself for us to truly reconnect with what we believe creative art is and who we think we are as creative artists. Because if we genuinely believe we are creative artists, then we know it's our responsibility to uphold a new community and a new cultural consciousness. Because this current shit that we got is not generationally recyclable. All right, now. That's the end of this video, or that's the end of this pod. I hope you guys like that, you know? I like making these. I'm starting to realize, like, I probably, like, the only reason why it takes me so long to make these episodes, if it does, is because I'm constantly trying to, like, navigate how much time I have and how much energy I have. Because, like, working a traditional job just burns me the shit out. Like, I can barely even freaking handle, like, managing relationships and whatnot. Freaking trying to be neurodivergent and to work a job and to do my hobby, which is, like, go to the gym and, like, watch documentaries and play video games. And freaking, there's so many stuff I want to do, bro. So, you know, whenever I ask for, like, a promo or I'm shouting out some businesses, I hope you know it's coming from a genuine place. It's coming from an everyday person who works a regular job, lives a regular life, drives a Honda Civic, and just has cool ideas. And hopefully that resonates with you. But other than that, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to be here, taking the time to be a part of my community, as crazy as I am, as inconsistent as I may be at times, and knowing that it's part of the process. We're getting to know each other, we're getting to grow on this journey, and we can really make shit shake, bro. We just have to be willing to dig into these concepts and these conversations and really find out what is, what can be, and what we can do about it. Very, very, very blessed to be in this position, to have the authority that I do, to give you guys this information and this insight. And I hope that I'm only ever making you proud. And if I can't do that, hopefully at least I'm making you entertained. Until next time, guys, continue to take care of yourselves. Continue to be everything that you are. And hopefully this gave you a little candy to enjoy. throughout the week. I love you guys like you my own. You guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and continue to be everything you know you can be. I love you.